How is everyone doing? I look forward to these moments every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, partially because it gives me a little bit of comfort, and it's nice to see, people who want to come here, want to be a part of this discussion, want to make a difference. So we got a few things that we're going to talk about here this morning before we kick off the open phones. And first and foremost, I just want to give just a eternal thank you to everyone who has supported these streams, the insurance that we are a safe place where people can have discussions, they can ask questions, they are not judged. Right. Like this is just something that I'm very, very proud to have everyone be a part of. It's obviously something that I care about deeply. And just your presence, you're sharing the stream, you're talking to other people about it. It is something I cannot thank you for enough. So thank you, Sev. I hope you're doing well today. I saw your update. It sounds like things are going a little bit better. That is awesome to hear. Let's talk about a few things. Let's get some housekeeping, have my opening monologue, if you will. First and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about something that was launched yesterday. And I know the individuals who have been working on this, and I'm absolutely happy to be a part of it. And it's pretty simple. It is this particular website is Gamers versus COVID-19. And it's like a simple way to create more awareness, right? The idea of gamers versus COVID-19 is like, hey, we're super equipped to be a part of this quarantine, to do our part of helping to not spread the coronavirus. And, the pledge, right? It's asking for a pledge, and it's as simple as clicking pledge now and putting your name in and hitting submit. Now, I've already pledged, but I promise to keep myself and my community safe, to help fight COVID-19 however I can for as long as it takes. I know this means social distancing, washing my hands, no hugging, shaking hands, fist pumping, calling a doctor if I come in contact with or feel symptoms, keeping calm and being informed with our resources and FAQ page. It would be really nice to be on that resources page, but more importantly, it has a lot of information like, hey, I'm sick. What can I do? What is COVID-19? How can I learn more, etc. But this is just a great way to show that, hey, gamers care about this. They're thinking about this. It's not easy on anyone, but this is something. The joke is that, like, gamers, we were made for this. There's truth to that, but as humans, we are not necessarily made for this, and we need to just remember that. Now, yesterday there was like 3,000. Today it was trending up to 15,000, and I know a lot of people might say, hey, this is like signing an online petition. Like, this isn't going to do anything. And one thing I would say is that it's going to make people feel more comfortable about what's happening, and I think that's an important thing, just like what we try to do here on this show. We don't want to fearmonger. We don't want to cause fear or panic or distress, but we do want people to be informed so that they can live their life to the best that they can, so they can take care of their friends, they can take care of their families, and more importantly, they can do it in a way that will keep them and everyone else safe. So my shout out to all the folks at the Gamer versus COVID-19 group who have been working on this. I can tell you that this project, thanks to the hard work of a lot of people, happened over the course of just a few days. You might have seen the PSA. There was a video going around. You can still check that out. I believe it's also on this page, showing all the gamers, some great individuals in this industry who take this seriously and are trying to spread that message. I chose not necessarily to be a part of that because I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday trying to spread this message. And, I think it's important that we have as many faces and as many voices out there as we possibly can. So that is Gamers versus COVID-19. You can check that out. I'll drop the link as well inside the stream. So there we go. And now we're going to move on to what I think is definitely a somewhat sensitive topic, but one that I want to talk about. Again, before I do that, I just want to remind everyone this is a safe space. This is a place where people may have different opinions, but we treat everyone's voice equal. We will take action if you come in and attack people or judge or try to ruin the safe space. That hasn't happened, thankfully. Thankfully, over the last 2 weeks, things have been very, very. They have just. I sounded like someone else right there. It has been very nice. Thank you. It has been very enjoyable, respectful. Thank you. So you might hear things that might make you angry. You might hear things that might be confusing. You might hear things, most certainly, that you have a differing opinion on. The most important thing that I say here is this is a place for us to have these discussions. Things are happening in this world. Things are changing with our governments. People are economically strapped. People are trying to figure out how to live their lives with their work, with their kids who might be staying at home. I fit into all three of those categories, and I know many of you do too. And the most important thing here is that we have to talk about it. And I think that is something that is 1,000% what this next topic is about. This next topic is something that I've personally been dealing with internally, not only with myself, but also in my family and with my wife. Let me start off by saying is that since December, we have heard stories about violent acts and racism towards not only Chinese citizens, but frankly, citizens of any Asian descent have kind of been experiencing it more. And what I'm talking about is a racist attitude, racist actions, racist words that are permutated and amplified by a lot of what is coming from our leader. And when I say leader, I'm from the United States. Just to give you context, I'm talking about Donald Trump. And I've personally experienced this. So hold on. I'm a bearded white dude from the Midwest. Let me give context for that. My wife is Chinese. Specifically, she is of Taiwanese descent. Her father and her biological mother came over here to build a life. Her biological mother passed away at a young age. However, my mother-in-law and her stepmother is of Korean descent. And so, I have been very fortunate to grow up and, I've been married to my wife or been with my wife for more than half of my life. So I would say I have grown up with a lot of exposure to, not only Chinese culture and Korean culture, but also Japanese culture, not only due to my own interests, but also due to my mother-in-law's ethnicity and her parents. And so I've experienced this because I've seen it. I've seen the looks. I've heard I've seen what happens if someone of Asian descent coughs. I've heard the stories of having to justify a cough or a sneeze in a public place because someone is of Asian descent. And the reason this has become something that I'm talking about now is for two things. First and foremost, to condemn the actions of a president of a nation who has used his platform and his power to try to amplify his message, which is a message of hate. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this, and this kind of has two parts. The first part is why I care about this and why I hope that you would care about this. The second part is a educational part on the very, 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 very bad arguments that I have heard against this. And the third part is that I've tried to remain. It's probably not fair because people could go back and clip the shit and be like, "This is not true." I have tried to keep the political aspect of this out. Undoubtedly, there have been times where it has come out from me. And this is not an issue of Democrat, of Republican. I do not call myself a Democrat. I do not call myself a Republican. I believe and I want to exist in the party of common sense. And we sit right in the middle. And we understand that on two political sides, there may be things that we agree with and things that we do not agree with. But I do not feel like I want to take a side where I have to draw a line in the sand. So this is not political commentary. This is me condemning the actions of an individual who happens to be a Republican president in office. Yesterday, during a briefing, President Trump, and I want to make this picture large. This was a picture taken from President Trump's notes on the Thursday coronavirus briefing. Now, it says it shows someone crossed out the word corona and replaced it with the word Chinese. Was that someone Trump? I don't know. Do I believe that a person in his position should actually be like, who crossed this out? Like, let's assume that it wasn't Trump. Who put this in here? This is not the time to be putting labels that are inconsistent with everything that has been done and said in the last 3 months. This is not okay. This to me is a way to justify actions, hatred, and judgment against a whole group of people that not only live in China, but that also live in the United States, and also live in Italy, and also live in Singapore, and also live in South America, and also live all over the fucking world. We've seen Asian American actresses and actors come out and speak up against this. We have seen many leaders of Asian descent speak up against this. And the kind of scary thing is that no one seems to think that it's bad. Right? Like, I posted my outrage on Facebook, of all places, because that's where I get political. And I couldn't believe the amount of people that are like, making a big deal over nothing. This isn't racist. Should we stop calling it Chinese food? Like, can you come up with any fucking dumber of an argument? And I apologize. That's not fair. That's not very safe. But I feel like what I have seen is people justifying racist actions. I've seen people downplay the impact this has. You know, my son is 14. You would look at him and you would know, right? He is a mix between myself and my wife, who is Chinese, but you'd look at him and you'd know. And, you know, like, as a parent, I have a pretty strong perspective on this, because I'm like, how are you supposed to help your kid understand that it's not okay for the president to say that kind of shit and perpetuate that sort of shit. No, he doesn't, Nerdy HD. Right? And how are you supposed to explain to him that as a result of this, he may have kids in school that decide to say things or act that are inappropriate? That's why I care about this. So, how is it consistent when the disease originated in China? Can you prove that that is the case? Also, the entire world has called it coronavirus for the last 3 months. Is it okay for one individual? And note that none of Trump's staff calls it that. Only him. Do I think that is justified? No. And actually, I think, like, let's talk about the Spanish flu, because that seems to be the real dumb argument that most people want to bring up when they do this. So let's do a little education here. But they called it the Spanish flu. I've got up here the Wikipedia on Spanish flu, right? Like, you can do a lot more research, but there's 2 things in here that I specifically want to point out. Why is it called the Spanish flu? For all those people that are justifying it. To maintain morale, World War I censors minimized early reports of illness and mortality in Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and the United States. Let's break that down for a moment. During World War I, people censored what was happening in these 4 countries to maintain morale. Maybe that was the right move then. What effect did that have? Papers were free to report the epidemic's effects in neutral Spain, such as the grave illness of King Alfonso XIII. And these stories created a false impression of Spain as especially hard hit. This gave rise to the pandemic's nickname Spanish flu. Historical and epidemiological data are inadequate to identify with certainty the pandemic's or geographic origin. So, the 4 countries where there was a lot of outbreak decided, well, shit, man, we can't have this. Fuck, man, we can't have this interrupting our war effort. Like, let's just pretend like nothing's happening. Spain, on the other hand, is like, this is a problem. People are dying. This is fucking bad. Look at how many people are dying. It gets labeled the Spanish flu. Here we are, fucking almost 102 years later, and that still stands. Now, does that make it right? Are we really living in a world where we want to say, well, in 1918, like, that's how they labeled the Spanish flu? We have the ability to look back on history and not make the same stupid fucking mistakes that we made before. So why are we okay with that? Why would we be okay to repeat what I would say is a pretty stupid part of history? Let's read further down. United States. There have been statements that the epidemic originated in the United States. Historian Alfred W. Crosby stated in 2003 that the flu originated in Kansas, and popular author John Barry described Haskell County, Kansas as the point of origin in his 2014 article. It has also been stated by historian Santiago Mata, 2017, that by late 1970, there had already been a first wave of the epidemic in at least 14 U.S. military camps. Look, I'm not trying to like reverse the tables and say we should call it the U.S. flu, but like, this here is a snapshot 100 years ago at kind of what is happening now, but in a totally different world and environment. this is a moment to just think about it. Okay? Is it confirmed that the virus started? No, I don't think it is. I think that is where the pandemic started. But like, do we actually know? Do we know that whether or not, right? Like, I don't know. I can't say that for certain. And even so, like, can't we be fucking better? Do we have to name it that? Can't we be fucking better? Can't we identify and can't we acknowledge that by doing something like that, you're causing problems? And maybe, look, maybe that seems really crazy because maybe it did originate there. But like, do you not want to stop and do you not want to think about the impact that this has on people of Chinese descent and frankly, people on any sort of Asian descent? Are we really that fucking shitty of humans that we cannot stop and go, oh, fuck yeah, like, man, if I was Chinese, like, I wouldn't like that. We've got a label for it. COVID-19. It is a coronavirus. We don't have to put a fucking fancy name to it that causes more harm than good. So the reason why I agree, a lot of people are saying this is like one man and his megalomania. And you're right. But do you know what? Other people pick up this rhetoric and other people exercise this rhetoric. You know, it's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing as a white man because they didn't call smallpox white man pox when it fucking wiped out the indigenous fucking population that existed here on the United States soil before anyone else got here. That's why I care. I care because I don't want that message. I don't want that label to gain power. And you can disagree with me on this. I'm okay with that. You can disagree with me on that. But what I will say all day is that we can be better than the past. It's like the one superpower that fucking humans have. We have a superpower that allows us to look at the past, to look at historical incidents, happenings, their effects, and changing our behavior based off of those things. That is a fucking superpower. But sometimes we choose not to exercise that. I don't understand what you can say. How are you not able, Scottish Warriors, to put the people perspective into this? This is a global pandemic. As many have said, smarter than me, viruses don't know borders. There you go. Vexed, this is fair. You can acknowledge that the disease originated in China. Great, right? That was where the first outbreak happened, as far as we know. That being said, it shouldn't be called a Chinese virus. Right? Like, I don't know. That's why, to me, it doesn't matter because it already has a name, COVID-19. Did it originate in China? We know that the initial outbreak, based off of timelines, at least show that Wuhan was it. That does not mean We can call it Kung Flu or the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus. It doesn't matter. Right. COVID-19 is the name of the disease. Virus is called SARS-CoV-2. Great. Better than Chinese virus. All of those. Take all that shit away. Just wipe it clean. And let's go back to the most important point. Don't marginalize a group of people. Don't make their lives harder in this already difficult time by creating another layer of hatred, of misunderstanding, of ignorance, when we can be better than that. This isn't a time to point fingers. This is a time for us globally to see that, like, this is happening to humans. And it doesn't matter if you are in fucking North Korea, if you are in China, if you are in Italy, or you are in the United States. At the end of the day, this is happening to the fucking human race. If aliens came down, started attacking the earth, but they fucking attacked Nebraska first, I would hope that we wouldn't call them the Nebraska aliens. I would hope that we would just call them the aliens trying to fucking kill us. So I'm going to just leave that there. And most importantly, I want you to understand where I'm coming from, and that is the human perspective. Is that I don't want to see this continue on. I think that we should denounce this individual's use and negligence using his platform to try to call it that. And I think I have to thank his staff for not jumping on that bandwagon. I don't care if he called it the Chinese virus after China started saying that it started with the U.S. military. Does that mean that it's okay? Right? Like, fuck, man. Think about all the times in my life where being a figure in the public eye, like, oh, Wheat, you're a fucking piece of shit. Oh, Wheat, fuck you. You didn't ban Lindy. Oh, fucking Wheat, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. There's like two ways to handle that situation. No, man, fuck you, you piece of shit, right? That's one way. Another way is like, cool. I don't need to respond to that. I don't need to get in that fight. I don't need to pick that battle. Like, this is how wars get started beyond wars. I don't think demeaning and putting an entire race in danger is a good response to something that may or may not be true. No one's going to not be clear on facts. I don't understand. Right? Like, that's not the president's job to fucking report that shit either. It's not his president's job to give us an editorial opinion piece on what he thinks. Especially considering his history and his past with things like Russia and Ukraine. And we're not going to go there, but like, let's be fucking real. I knew that this was going to be a somewhat like spicy thing to talk about. I do not judge anyone who has been trying to argue against this. I would only ask and wish that sometime today you would imagine what it must be like for individuals who are receiving racist looks, thoughts, words, actions as a result of this, you know? And like, I don't have to look too much further than my own Facebook, where people who I thought were pretty intelligent are fucking, you know, defending it. And listen, partially like, I'm like, well, I think he's defending it because he's just a white dude in the Midwest. I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know how someone cannot empathize with another subset of humans. I don't know. I can't. That doesn't fucking compute in my head. I have extreme empathy. I operate on sensitivity. They say I wear my heart on my sleeve. I care about people. I care about what fucking happens to people, even if they are different than myself. And all I would hope is that these individuals who are saying these things and are fighting against this are for some reason feeling like they must defend this individual or the labeling of a virus as such. So with that being said, thank you for letting me get that out there. You know, thank you for letting me get it out there. You know, the world's going to be full of people with differing opinions. That's why we're amazing. That's why the human race is incredible. But because of our ability to form different opinions, it also shows us why we can be fucking terrible. And yeah, man, like, call me a hippie. I don't give a fuck. I'm all about the can't we all just get along? And I don't regret that. Totally. Always 20 sides to the die. You're right. So we get together here. If you've just joined us, this was probably one of our heavier topics. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to address it. We are going to be opening the phones in just a moment. And, you know, look, I am totally, wow, we already, all right, great. The phones they've already popped up. I'm okay talking about this subject. Okay. I don't necessarily want the show to just hyper focus on this one thing, because we also have to remember that, like, that is, in the grand schemes of thing, you know, it is as important, but obviously not in the spotlight against different things that are happening, the number of deaths that we're having, the increased spread, the continued quarantine. And I do think that we should have some good news, right? Like, some good news is that it has been reported for 2 days in a row that China has not seen new community spread cases, and that every case that they have reported has actually come from right where this is spreading in other parts of the world. Now, this may not mean much because they've also reported that they are concerned about a second spread. But I think for all of us looking for any sort of light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like, it goes to show, like, there can be, due to quarantine measures, right? Like a substantial decrease, a equalization of things. And, you know, it's good news. So I want to also remind folks, if you need some good news during all of this, twitter.com/thewellwishers. They are a site in which they talk about the positive things that are happening in the world of this fight against the coronavirus. It's good to see. Look at that. Dan Giesling, Anna Prosser, Jen Grant. I love it. All right. British scientists discover antibody in blood of patient who fought off SARS that could neutralize coronavirus. Great news. UK hopes newly made ventilators will be ready for coronavirus fight next week. Coronavirus. Hokkaido ends state of emergency. Japan's schools are reopening. We in the United States are seeing a lot of news that is like, breaking news, another terrible fucking shitty thing is happening. Breaking news. Oh my God, more crazy shit is happening. Breaking news. Trump calls this shit the Chinese. Breaking news. There's going to be a $1 trillion bet. Breaking news. LA is now under lockdown. Like, when you're dealing with that nonstop, you kind of have to take a fucking break from that shit. Latest follower, silent lurker killer. Watch out for that guy. So the well-wishers on Twitter. The well-wishers on Twitter. Check it out. All right, we have a ton of callers lined up. All right, I'm finding out the order because like a bunch of people hopped in. While we're figuring out, thank you to all the moderators out there, Seahole, Kim, and TGM, rocking it right now. If you'd like to call in, here's how it happens. Join up on my Discord. You can do !Discord in the chat. There is a voice directory called phones. And if you hop in there, then I will bring you up into on air. We will have a little chitty chat discussion and we will wrap up and then another caller will come. We're going to try to bring these folks on in the order in which they came. And so our first caller is going to be a return caller. This was actually the first individual that we had on the show Wednesday who has been recovering from the coronavirus, COVID-19. And we are hopefully going to hear some good news. But I'm going to bring Sev on first to tell us a little bit about how he is doing. So ladies and gentlemen, say hello, good morning, good afternoon to Sev. How's it going, buddy?
My man, I'm doing a lot better. I gotta say, a lot better.
2 days ago, we were chatting and it sounded like we even were questioning, like, are you like over the curve? Are you like on top of the curve? And now would you say you're coming down?
I'm at the tail end. I think I have like another day, maybe at max, maybe 2. And, of actually like having symptoms. I have basically no fever left anymore. So you remember how high my fever was?
Yeah.
It was super high. and it's basically just normal now. Yeah, still a bit of shortness of breath, but that's because, well, like I talked about the fibrosis, so the lung capacity, and that's going to be there for a while, if not forever. And but other than that, I'm feeling a lot more energetic. I actually got out of bed today for the first time and cleaned my room and had a shower and a shave, and it was refreshing. It was great.
I know one of the things we talked about was sort of that sapping of energy, right? So by you saying that, does that mean that you can kind of feel your energy levels coming back?
It's like they came back all at once. It was like being hit by a giant tidal wave of energy.
Wow.
I had this total spiritual moment last night where I broke down. I just started crying, but I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was just extremely happy. And from all the love and support that I've gotten from everyone, people I don't even know messaging me. And a lot of it was because of, talking with you, and just all the reactions that I got from that have just been overwhelmingly positive. And, and I commend you for the stuff you're doing now, and the positivity, that you were just showing us with the well-wishers. I think people need to understand that, I saw this picture here just as an example. I saw this picture of the forest fires. Like, that wasn't too long ago in Australia.
Right.
Everything's blackened and dead and died. But I just saw this picture from yesterday. Everything's growing back now. It's green again. Like the forest is coming back. And that's what this is going to be. We're going through this giant fire, which is known as Corona. And we're going to be okay in the end. It's going to suck. And there's a lot of things are going to be terrible. And that's when the best of us, or the best in us, has to come up. And we have to show love for each other and understanding. And,
amen.
And be there.
I mean, I don't even think I can say anything better than that. I think that, I mean, I've had this discussion with my wife where, this is tough on everyone, right? And right, like the best thing that we can do is just like feel for all of these people and all of the different things that they're going through, but also just right. We need to share, and we need to find hope and inspiration in that positivity. Right. And I think that's, to your point, like I've tried to make sure that, hey, we're going to talk about some bad shit and some negative shit. But I do think, just like you said, it is so valuable to find the positivity thing in things. And dude, 1,000%. I can just see it in chat right now. Everyone is overjoyed that, having even listened to you on Wednesday, honestly, like I can hear it in your voice, and that makes me so happy. Like that there is an enormous amount of hope that I think you are bringing to people, that you're willing to not only share your story, but that you can come on and say, man, it actually is getting better. Dude, I'm just glad you're feeling better, dude.
I listen, man, and just to throw this on top, and you were talking about the two ways you can combat, as it were, negativity or racism and things like that. I think there's a third option, and I think that option is love. I think that person that is racist or doesn't understand, hasn't been shown enough love in their life, and doesn't understand what it means to be wanted or needed. I think if you give that person enough love, their heartful hate will be filled with love, and they'll realize the errors of their ways. And I know I sound like a hippie now, but God, I'd rather be a hippie than an asshole.
I'm with you. I would rather be a hippie than an asshole. I could not put it any better. And I mean, I think you're right, man. And honestly, like that's been one of the motivating things. Like after last week, I have to admit, like after last week, I was like, man, I don't know if I can mentally do this. Right? Like there is a part of me that feels like maybe I'm just digging this deeper and deeper hole. But frankly, like just like kind of what you said, getting those messages that saying, hey man, like I got my brother to tune in, and I think because he could like listen to someone that was more relatable than just like the same, media rhetoric that's going on, or hear from other people and really get a full experience of like what they're going through. Messages like that have been an incredible driver in terms of like, you know what, like I can do this. Like everyone else here is to support one another. Like this isn't a one-man show. This is everyone's show, right? And I think like that's the important part. That's why I think the Gamers versus COVID-19 is important. I think that it shows how great it is to be a part of a cause, and even that makes a difference. So I'm right there with you, man, in terms of like it really has been the support and the love and the positivity that has come from other people that have made this a much more bearable situation, that have encouraged me to wake up on these Monday, Wednesday, Fridays and really get on the microphone. There's always that like 60 seconds of doubt that happens every morning, right? Like it's just, but I, again, think about some of those messages, think about wanting to hear from you and everyone else in chat, and it goes a long ways.
It's about taking the love that's given to you and spreading it forward and just giving it on to other people, and it will come back to you, Marcus. It always will. Like you guys gave me all the love and support I needed on this past Wednesday, and I'm here to give it back to you, man. You're a great human being. You're
Thanks,
doing
bro.
an amazing job, man. You really are.
Thanks,
and
Steve.
you and your wife are absolutely amazing. And I saw what happened on your Facebook. I saw that. And I'm here to say I actually messaged a couple of those people. And I told them there's no need to rename it. There's no need to, like, I've worked in advertising for 15 years. You're just going to confuse people. Keep calling it Corona. I understand that you're scared. You don't understand what's going on right now. But if you need to talk, I'm here. And a couple of them actually did started talking to me and opened up a bit. So it was beautiful.
That's
like,
amazing.
I mean it, man.
That is, and thank you. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that.
All right. I just wanted to come in here and say that it does get better, guys. It really does. And trust me, if anyone thought it wouldn't, and if there's anyone that's a giant or used to be a giant asshole here, God, it was me. And you know that, Marcus. I was a dickhead. But now I feel like it's been a giant. I feel like a completely different man. And I'm not religious whatsoever. I'm the biggest atheist ever. But I do think love can be something that we can all pass on to each other. And we need to now. It's important.
Amen. Amen. Some purple hearts, some bleed purples in the chat for Sev. Sev, you've been amazing. Thank you for uplifting and helping to, add a little plus 10 to positivity here on today's stream. I really appreciate it. So keep us updated, buddy. We'll be checking in. Obviously, we'll continue to chat. I hope this means that you're that much closer to being able to be reunited with the family. I know you mentioned that you're still going to be like kind of undergoing a quarantine beyond this, and we're here for you to get through it.
I'll be here, man. I'll have the stream on, and if anyone needs to talk, if you're feeling lost and alone, just send me a message, guys. I'm here for you. I mean it.
Awesome. Sev, thank you. You're an inspiration and a hope to us all.
Love you, man.
Love you, man. Take care. Bye-bye. Sev, thank you, man. I think Sev said it great. I'd rather be a hippie than an asshole, and all we need is a little bit of love, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of putting ourselves in other people's shoes. It could go a long ways. It helps you get a really unique perspective on life. It helps you better contextualize and, understand what others may be going through. And I think, like, to me, this is also one of the most important things about what we're doing here, right? Like, many of us are here in the United States because of the time that I stream. Many of us also from Europe. And I cannot thank you all enough for calling in, sharing your stories, right? Like, there are things that we just don't see in those headlines, or things where it's like it's hitting home in the US so hard right now that it's hard to look outwards and still keep a lens on what is happening everywhere else. Again, this is happening to moms and dads and kids and grandparents and families and friends. And we need to have empathy for what is going on right now. Okay. So there's one thing I want to do real quick before I bring on the next caller, because I remembered I was going to do this the other day. I'm going to increase the display message to 300 seconds. That should be 5 minutes. Is my math right there? Yes. So if we need to increase it, if you want me to increase it after this, we still can. Cool? It should be on 500 seconds now. All right. Our next caller is Dr. WD-40. And Dr. WD-40, unfortunately, we weren't able to have him on the show yesterday. Came in a little late. But one of the ongoing conversations that we've been having is due to schools, right? The timing of this hitting the United States means that the last few weeks of schools have been incredibly disrupted, and that is a ripple effect. Of course, that ripple effect is that as parents are also learning to and or transition to working at home, this means that suddenly they're taking on a second job, which is to ensure that digital learning is happening. I mean, I think it is going to make people definitely appreciate more the offering that our public, our private, or et cetera schools are giving to us in terms of like taking care of our children. And one of the things that we've been discussing is digital learning, schools that are closing. I think I gave you guys an update, but just the other day, they announced to our school that we are not going to be coming back for the remainder of the year. Everyone was assigned a certain time block in order to come to the school to grab their things, to turn in, Chromebooks and all that stuff. And they will be moving over to digital learning here in the next 4 to 6 days. Dr. WD-40 wanted to chat a little bit about this and talk to us about some of the things that he's doing. So I won't put words in his mouth. Let's go ahead and bring Dr. WD-40 onto the show. Hello, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I know I kind of gave a breakdown, but I want to make sure, give us some context. Where are you at? And then, talk a little bit about this sort of educational piece that we've been discussing.
Yeah, so I'm down in Florida, and I'm a professor down here. It's a junior college, not big school like UF or anything like that. And this is technically our spring break week, and they announced that we'd be closed next week so that instructors can start preparing for online content. So the rest of the semester, we'll finish the semester, but everything goes online, and I teach labs. So this has been very difficult figuring out how this transition would happen.
When you say you teach labs, can you give us a little bit more context to exactly what that means?
Yes.
I imagine it's like, oh, so you like teach chemistry, and so you're doing things like that. But I know that labs can mean a lot of different things in education. So what exactly?
So I teach anatomy and physiology.
Okay.
And it's very hands-on dissections, working with models and things like that. Important things that the students need to know to get through anatomy and physiology. And the way I'm handling it is doing videos of it. So pretty much a POV video lab of me going through the process that they then watch. And I can handle this technical stuff. And the reason I wanted to come on was that if there are other instructors out there, maybe watching this now, or viewers know there are instructors who might be, struggling with this transition, that they can reach out and we can help them at least get set up in it.
Well, I definitely want to go into that a little bit more. Let's rewind just a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm in a similar situation where my son also on spring break this week. So while schools were technically closed last week, God, it's last week seems like 10 years ago. It's so crazy because, I remember it was, I think it was like that Thursday, because I had reported it 1 week ago that they'd let school out early. They basically started spring break early, and that gave them, the week. And so it was very fortunate for this particular district to have their spring break, because it kind of allowed them to transition, pivot, and get ready for digital learning. But I want to rewind just a little bit, because we've seen this come in phases, right? The first phase is we're having some outbreaks here in the United States. Schools began closing. I just would love to hear what you were kind of going through as an educator at that moment as you were starting to see schools closing, right? So it's a kind of a two-part question. First off, how were you feeling during that time? And then second of all, were you already thinking about that potentially happening to your school and transitioning into digital learning? So first off, like, how were you feeling as you were kind of watching this unfold as an educator in the United States?
I knew it would happen. I've been following the virus since mid-January, and I've been sharing since I teach anatomy, physiology, genetics, those kinds of courses. I've been talking about it with my students since then. And as soon as the lockdown started happening in China, I started, discussion of like, what's going to happen when this lockdown happens here? And what do you mean? And my students were like, what do you mean when it's going to happen here? So it's going to happen here? I was like, no, this is how viruses work. This virus is obviously looking pretty bad. And the way infrastructure is set up now, it's going to spread. And so I use this virus when I could as an educational tool in the classroom. And so, I mean, technically can use technology quite well. So I already had some of my content prepared for it.
Got it.
On our online thing. So I was prepared for it, and I was never in denial of not needing to prepare for it. Whereas I know some other instructors were like, I was like, oh, how are you going to transition your microbiome lab? And they're like, oh,
That'll
well,
never
I won't
happen.
have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't do that transition. I don't have to think about it. I'm like, you're going to have to think about this. And the college started sending out emails probably 3 weeks ago saying, just think about how you transition your course. So we got that email. We got it again the next week. And then it was like, okay, closed a week after spring break, and then everything's online. But besides that, there hasn't been a ton of direction in how to do it, which is the scary part for some instructors who don't know how to stop YouTube autoplay.
Right.
So like, how are they going to do these recordings, know how to put them on YouTube? And my goal is I want to try to do synchronous lectures because my students sign up for a face-to-face course.
Right.
A lot of them can't learn by just clicking play on a YouTube recording. It has to be interactive, and they have to be able to ask questions. So that's my difficult part now, is figuring out how I'm going to do that. And luckily, my class sizes are all less than 25 people, and I'm actually going to use Discord.
Great.
We'll see how the Discord thing goes with the Go Live feature. I thought about Twitch. I actually used to do office hours on Twitch, but I was kindly asked by the school to stop doing that. And I know some other instructors like Prof. Melko in chat does his office hours on Twitch already for chemistry, and he gets amazing feedback from his students for it, working through problems and things like that. And it's an interesting situation. Like, Twitch would be a great idea to do these interactive lectures, but then how can you make it specific for your students who are paying tuition for it? It's a great platform for it. And there are other platforms out there available, like Discord is one now.
Right.
And then there's Zoom. Some colleges have their own thing built into the Canvas portal called Conferences, which imagine doing a video lecture at 5 frames per second. So it's not that great, but it gets the job done. And so those are some different options for synchronous. But the other problem is you still have to have the recordings.
Right.
We can't assume all of our students' lives are the same now and have the same schedule. A lot of my students are nurses. So their schedules or their kids are home now. They can't come to those same class times anymore.
Right. Right.
That's one thing we
So
have to remember.
that's a really interesting point, is that, like, we're just kind of looking at it like, yeah, digital learning, cool. The professor does it or the teacher figures out how to do it. But it's a great point, right? Obviously, I'm talking a lot in context to like my 14-year-old, right? Who's like, his job's to go to school, right? Pretty easy to stay on whatever schedule needs to be stayed on. But I think you bring up a great point, and always trying to preach context on everything, is that there's a lot of students especially right in sort of your in higher learning, higher education, where it's like they are in a junior college or a college, and maybe they are a job or doing residency or something like that, and because they might have kids at home or they might have other things that are calling them to action, that it hypothetically this turns into another thing that they're juggling. So if they were juggling two balls, now they've been, we've added a chainsaw and a flaming sword. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And educators need to be understanding with their students. I know most will be, but you can't hold your students to the same standard that you held them in a face-to-face class.
Right.
The lives are different now. So
Can we-
my plan is
Oh, go ahead. Keep going. Yeah.
do the synchronous lectures, but also have the recording and then upload it unlisted on YouTube. And then the reason for the Discord is they could watch those lectures and still ask questions within the Discord.
Right. Can I ask, it's probably a hard question to sort of quantify, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you, right, like, assuming that we've got several weeks, maybe months ahead of this, right? Digital learning, it might kind of seep and into summer as well, which I think people are kind of okay with. So do you think that this is going to have any substantial impact on just like the general education that people are going to get over this next couple months? Like, or do you feel like once we're transitioned into this, that right, we're going to be okay? People are going to get caught up. I mean, I've read concerned notes from parents who are like, will my son, daughter, dog be ready to go to next grade? Like my son's making a major transition from middle school to high school in this upcoming year, like I'm a less concerned about this, but I feel like I'd love to hear from an educator's perspective. And I just don't mean your work, but just kind of your perception on right, the whole nation.
Yeah, I'm worried about K through 12, if I'm being honest, because you could be missing some big milestones that you really need to be at school for or with a proper educator for. And, not especially for, or even the lunch issue where some students, their one lunch a day is at school. And so I'm worried about those issues. And I know here in Florida, they closed schools until April 15th. And I think they made the statement that students would automatically go into the next grade. And of course, some of those students probably weren't going to go into the next grade or weren't ready for that next grade. And so those are a little bit of worries there. But in the end, it's going to work itself out. Right. Educators will always be educators and step up to the plate and get the job done. That's one thing about educators. And it'll get done. It's just going to be a lot of effort from both ends.
Right.
It can't just be effort from the educator end.
Totally.
Students are going to have to put in a different style of effort that they're not used to doing as well.
Yeah. I mean, I hope in the end, right, like we will come out stronger. I've talked a little bit about how I think that this will identify some cracks that I think many of us know exist in our educational systems, but we've kind of just been okay, like dealing with those on a year by year basis and not ever saying, hey, here's where some of the major breakdowns are. So exactly. Yeah, I do hope that a lot of good comes to the education system, like from top to bottom, when we're out of this, because I am a big, I don't know if you heard my rant earlier, right? But like our superpower is being able to learn from our mistakes and or something like this that will expose these issues, these problems, and then we have the ability to work on them and change everything for the better. And I hope that when it comes to education, that is something that will absolutely come from here. And, it may not happen right away. It may take many, many years, but I do hope that this is going to bring out those new people who are like, you know what, this is a fight that is worth fighting for, because it is what we need.
Yeah, I think it'll show the importance of education,
Right.
and also the importance, as there some people in chat like right now talking about, of homeschooling.
Yeah.
And how homeschooling is a very beneficial thing if done right, and parents need that motivation to do that with their kids now and understand the importance of education and importance of continue that education at home for their kids.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard yesterday, but I'm a big fan of homeschooling. It got us through, what I would say is a pretty rough educational period in San Francisco. And, so for me, there's a part of me that is, I don't want to be insensitive, but like this is, I think that this particular moment in time does showcase how effective homeschooling can actually be. I know that's like, it's a much different situation because obviously parents and caretakers are juggling this aspect of it. But if people come out on the other side and are like, man, I really do appreciate and understand why people might choose to homeschool, or why a student was homeschooled, or how effective homeschooling can actually be, to change that narrative generally would be incredible. It would be incredible because, I do get a little sad when even his current teachers, right? When the first time we went to parent teacher conferences, they were like, we can't believe your son was homeschooled. Like, wow, he really has all these good habits of a student, that it's like, well, it's not like he hasn't been in public schools, but like even hearing that from teachers is a little weird, because it's like, well, why wouldn't it be, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm glad to hear that you're, kind of buckling down and are capable of putting together a program. And it sounds to me like, that this is ongoing evolution and improvement. I'm sure you will go through a few days or try a few things or get feedback from students and be able to improve what you're doing based off of that.
Yeah.
So
right
yeah.
now I'm just trying to teach them how to leave voice chat in Discord.
Yeah.
Click on the voice icon, then they sit there for like 5 hours and not realize they're in voice.
Yes. Yeah. Just remember that disconnect button. I was in the work from home channel the other day, and I started a meeting while my mic was open, and people were like, wait, who are you talking to? I was like, oh, whoops, my bad. So it happens.
There's a quick question here on beaches in Florida. Yeah,
Yes.
It's different throughout Florida. In my county, they closed all public beach parking, and guess what Floridians would do? They all park in the grass then. So, and up in like Cocoa Beach, they just made a new rule last night that there's no more alcohol on the beaches because we're having problems. Spring breakers still going to the beach, and so they're thinking they haven't officially closed beaches, but they tried by closing general parking by beaches, and now they're trying to disallow alcohol on the beach to not encourage people. Neither of those will work, and it's going to eventually come out to say beaches are closed.
Yeah.
People are.
I mean, can we ask the obviously, like, the elephant in the room question? Because I'm a guy in Nebraska. We got no beaches, so obviously not a problem here. Actually, we got the Lenoma Beach, but I doubt that one's open. But, what, like, I've been asking myself, why the hesitation, right? Based off of everything happening in the rest of the world, is this like because of tourism? Is it a money and economical thing? Like, it just seems to me like this one's a no-brainer. It'd be great. Maybe you have a little bit more context, being someone who lives in Florida.
The Florida stuff is definitely a tourism issue. I mean, we don't even pay state income tax because of our tourism.
Right.
And Disney remaining open as long as it did really had me worried. And there were still major events going on, and I knew spring break was coming. Daytona Bike Week just happened. I worked an event last week called Beach and Boards Fest, which I didn't think really should have happened because all these different vendors came in from all over. It's a surf contest. We closed down most of the interactive parts of the event for the last couple days of the event, and so they finally listened. But yeah, it was. There's been too many large events going on, and spring break is a tough one. But spring break brings in a ton of money for students coming down here.
Right.
And I can understand the debates that the higher ups and managements have regarding the issue. Do we close? Do we do this? Then all the hotels are going to be like, how are you going to reimburse us for all these canceled rooms? And it's tough. And all the small businesses who count on that, spring break part of the year to be their main money making part of the year aren't going to get that anymore. So this goes way down. And one thing I could say for everyone out here now is support those local small businesses now more than you have in the past, because if they have a carry out option, do the carry out option. Give them as much support as you can right now, because they will struggle through this.
Yes.
Especially the spring break areas, because they count on that income from spring break, and they just had a ton of cancellations because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I bless my wife's heart. She's been really good about that. In terms of like, how can we, every little thing helps. We haven't quarantined to the point where we have done that with a few of our favorite places, right?
Yeah.
Obviously it's not the same as going in and getting a hot or fresh meal right there, but if it means that after all this that they will remain open and every little bit helps, then we're all for getting involved with that. So I can't stress what you're saying as any more important, because it really is.
Yeah, and you had a tweet about it the other day. Even as streamers, we need to think about this differently now too, and know that our viewers are going to be affected financially by this, and we can't expect the same in return from that. And to be understanding, for streamers who are where it is their job.
This one hits pretty close to home in a lot of ways, right? Like my job at Twitch is creator development, right? And so for me, this is a time to spring to action. And I've been talking to a lot of creators and just sort of trying to understand their mindset and how are they thinking. Because I think that it is important to get that perspective. And, it goes without saying, a lot of people are worried, and it makes me a little uncomfortable when I see 5 articles that come out in a singular day saying, oh my God, man, Twitch is blowing up. Great. On any other normal day, I would be so happy to read that article. It makes me uncomfortable because none of these articles are talking about it from the context of like, well, yeah, but the whole world is kind of like, in like economically strapped, or going into a period of time where people are going to be economically strapped. And this can have a ripple effect on the creators, and not just on Twitch, right? That means YouTube and other influencers, right? Like the world of content creation will benefit from the fact that more people are putting more eyeballs on this different types of content. But that does not, like, that is such a bubble perspective on it, because it doesn't take into consideration all of the other things that are happening in this world that could, affect that. And again, I don't want, I don't,
money.
right. It's like, I don't want to be like, this is where I worry the most about, I've never worried about being a fearmonger in all of this, right? This is one area because, maybe people love their creators so much that it's like that $5 is still worth it for me. I want them, like in supporting small businesses, that might be the way they do it. But I do think that everyone who is a creator who at least puts thought to it and prepares for it, that is better than getting caught with your pants down. And that's really more than anything what I want. I want people to just consider it. I want people to like think about it. I want people to imagine a scenario where if this does get real bad for a few months, and right, we are still in that, like, things are going to get worse. The scenario, they areas are getting better, but again, like, just having the thought means you're going to be more prepared than not. So, I think it's important that we continue to kind of talk about that, and I'm going to keep talking to creators and keep making sure that creators are in a good space, and obviously do everything that I can do within Twitch to make sure that, right, we're taking care of what is undoubtedly our greatest asset, and that is the creators and frankly, the audience. So I love it. I hope we see some growth. I hope people, find new communities and collaborate and do new and creative and innovative things. But we can't forget that the effects that this is having on the rest of the world could still have an effect despite the positive growth that, is being reported on. So I'm glad that I'm glad that kind of struck a chord with you.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, Twitch is a beautiful place right now in a time of social distancing where we can be pretty social here.
Right.
Discords on our own channels and things like that. Whereas even though we're going through social distancing, it doesn't really feel like it.
Yeah.
And so we can still have that interaction and things like that, where it doesn't feel like we're cooped up in our houses all day.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, man, thank you so much. I'm glad you came on, and maybe we'll check in a little bit to hear how things are going, if you've made any adjustments, maybe some of the challenges that you face. But I guess just you mentioned it earlier, but if there is anyone who, is interested in learning more about what you're doing, or they are a professor that is trying to figure out how to tackle this, can you kind of repeat what you said in terms of being a resource for those individuals?
Yeah, they can reach out to me, or the shout out community I'm part of is called the Knowledge Fellowship. Had a panel at TwitchCon last year where we're an educational community on Twitch, a central hub for all the educational content. And right now, a lot of educators are coming in asking for advice and things like that. So you can directly reach out to me. I'm sure Prof. Melko wouldn't mind. He's in chat too. Or you can check out the Knowledge Fellowship. We're Discord-based community. I have a link on my page, and there's a website for it as well. And yeah, we're here to help. And if you are in school and you have an instructor that's struggling, have them reach out. And yeah, are you looking it up right now?
Yeah, I was just
website's a work in progress.
I was trying to figure out like the best way to show. Obviously you could follow Dr. WD40 on Twitter. Has got some links as well, and could probably find.
There's a Google Doc with our list of streamers that have it all too.
Great.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's the video of the panel last year.
Awesome.
But yeah, right now we're acting like as a little central hub for helping people get settled in this new online instruction, because a lot of us streamers there are doing that transition too.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck, and I've absolutely got your back. As I've said many times, this educational piece of what we're going through is something that's very important to me, not only as the parent of a child, but just as a concerned citizen who wants to see our education systems improve and reach a better level of equality, and also see advancements in technology, because this will undoubtedly have a positive effect, I do believe, on how people can get education, how we can provide education. So I really do thank you for all of your efforts, and keep up the good work, my man.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for sharing this knowledge. This is a different perspective on the knowledge. When I talk about this, I talk just about the science, and having these different perspectives and things like that. It's really good for the community to talk about this without the misinformation or fear mongering and things like that. It really brings everyone down, reduces the panic, and helps a lot. So I just want to thank you.
Of course, man.
Having these discussions too.
I'm doing my part.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for doing your part too, man. All right. We'll talk again soon. Good luck with everything. And I wish you and your students the best.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
You too.
All right, let's see. It looks like Bowman Rudo is going to be coming up next. We've got Nightlight, Mr. Kaji on deck, Fowler on as well. Just a quick reminder, if you would like to join us today for the open phones, you can join my Discord, hop into the phones channel, and that will mean that you want to come on air and have a discussion with me and everyone who is watching. If you've just joined us for the first time, welcome. My name is djWHEAT. I've been doing these streams for a couple of weeks now, originally as a way to just kind of provide a safe place to talk about some of the things that are happening, get a global perspective on people from around the world, and really exercise the fact that Twitch is a global platform, and also to ask questions and to be better informed about what is happening, not only in your country, but what could be happening in other country, or what could be happening in your country. I mean, everyone is kind of experiencing this on a different timeline, and that becomes more and more evident with every single show that we do. So our motto is that, like, my platform is your platform. This is a time for all of us to share our stories, and don't be shy to call in. There's no question that is dumb. There is no perspective that we won't take a look at or uncover. And so if you'd like to get involved, this is an open invitation to, join us along with many others by calling in. We use Discord for these calls. So if you don't already, hop in, create a Discord account. You can join us on the Fields of Wheat. That's my Discord. And I want to give a shout out to everyone in the Discord. We've had a lot of new people kind of filtering into the Discord. Everyone has been great. Shout out to the Bacon from Hell, who has done an amazing job helping to provide more and more info on COVID-19. That can be found in COVID-19-info. There is specifically a channel for that on my Discord, along with its own chat. So if you ever have a question, you see something, there's a lot of really informed individuals that are hanging out and a part of this community that would be happy to talk with you, whether it is like Sev, a recovering COVID-19 community member, or whether it is Dr. WD-40, who is doing his best to help those in who are dealing with this from an educational perspective. So we're going to bring Bowman Rudo on next, and we'll continue our phones. Bowman Rudo, good morning, good afternoon. How goes it today?
Afternoon. Very well for me. Like I mentioned last week during I late in the chat, I got a confirmation that I do not have COVID-19. My mom doesn't either. So last days have been smooth sailing.
That's got to feel good.
Yeah. It does feel good to know, okay, I'm good. My family is good. Just got to keep it this way and write this out and just be prepared.
Yes.
The other thing.
I just wanted to say, I mean, I remember when I asked Sev the other day, what was that 8 hours in terms of finding out the results of his test? And he said that was the worst 8 hours. So I know you had a little bit longer. So we're all very happy to hear that things have been reported back good. So
yeah, I also yesterday went to the supermarket again to just get some groceries, and I gotta mention the how much to the bone the people that are working at the Dutch supermarkets have been doing. Since I went in about 7:15, which is just 7 o'clock usually the stores open. So we're just after
in
opening.
the morning. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there was nobody basically there in trying to rush in. So that panic buying has stopped pretty much, and everything was stocked.
Great.
I did not have to worry about anything. It's okay, just what I need is here, and I can just take it easy, buy what I need. And I had to go in a bit later in the day, and I was still pretty much stocked. There were some stuff that was not panic bought up, but more okay, this won't go bad, so I'll get 5 or 6 of this instead of just grabbing one as usual.
Right.
So there were things that were low on stock, but there was definitely nothing out of stock. So it's definitely they caught up to it by this point. They know what's going on, and it's
well,
really good on them.
I mean, something you said is really important, right? oftentimes we hear this a lot, especially in the United States. First responders, right? First responders generally referred to as the like police officers and medical paramedics and firefighters, right? Like traditionally, when you hear first responders, that is what comes to mind a lot of times because of the context in which that's used in the United States. I think that it is completely appropriate in the situation that we're in to call our, the people who are working at these stores, who are trying to keep the essentials open. To me, they are some of the most important first responders of this situation. Here in the United States, a lot of the store hours, we have many stores that are open 24 hours. They have all collectively, and this isn't because the government told them to do it, and I think it's really responsible, but like I'll give a shout out to one of the chains here in the Midwest. It's called Hy-Vee. They've been around for about 90 years, started off as a little, store on a corner and now is a reputable, very long standing grocery store chain. And they have bumped down the hours. So you might think like, well, gosh, isn't that worse that you're bumping the hours down for people? But the important aspect is that they're doing that so that A, they can maintain a proper stock, and B, they are cleaning the stores, right? They are doing everything they can to make sure that like, hey, because we know that this is a place that you are going to have to come to, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that this is a place that is clean, that, you can feel safe and not, feel like you may be infected. People are still practicing social distancing, but I really do commend all of the people that are staying on those front lines, dealing with more customers than they've ever dealt with, definitely dealing with irate customers, right? Like people who are probably taking this out. So my hat's off and my applaud to all of these individuals. And this isn't just in the United States. This is everywhere, right? Just as you mentioned, these folks are so important, and we'd be in a lot worse place if these individuals decided that they weren't going to sort of be soldiers on this invisible war. So thank you. If you work in that industry, if you are a part of that, if you are still going to work because that is your line of work, you deserve a massive thanks, and you deserve incredible props.
Definitely echoing that. That's yeah, just agreement. I also have noticed, like, I've been keeping track of the numbers here in the Netherlands. I'm personally in a very hot zone in the south of the country, like the most southern province.
Right.
So it's pretty bad around here. But I've also noticed that, like, for a couple of days now, there was a couple of days where every single day the numbers were doubling.
Right.
And for the past few days, the numbers haven't been doubling. It's like, there's 500 cases now, and there was like, I believe yesterday it was 400 cases, but that's not double. It's
Right.
like, it was like, it went, I believe, from 150 to 300, and then it went to like 4 something, and now 5 something. So it's definitely like there's getting a lot each day. It's still like increasing, but it's increasing slower.
That's, I mean, honestly, any light like that is good to hear.
Yep.
I think like one of the most important questions that we're hoping to get answers to is how effective are these quarantines? We've seen effectiveness in South Korea. We've seen effectiveness in Japan. We've seen effectiveness in Italy, even though things are, there's still some climbing reports there. Singapore is one caller called in and talked about some of the measures that they have been taking. So, right, like I think people want to know that this sacrifice that they're making for the world and for other people and for those who, might be more susceptible to the effects of this, that, right, like people want that positive reassurance that, hey, what you are doing is going to make a difference. So it's just good to hear someone, like you from the Netherlands saying like, hey, this does make us feel better, right? And potentially, hopefully it'll make others feel better.
Yep, and I'll be 100% honest. I might be looking at the numbers wrong. Like I'm only human too, after all. But from what I've seen, the trend is that it's little bit slowing down. I'm not
Well,
saying it's like suddenly overnight it's gone, but it's
yeah. And obviously, like that's. I think that would be tough to go for. Now, I mean, I do think that someone in chat did say could not stop. Said, in Norway they aren't testing enough, so like our numbers happen to kind of still be kind of low. And hopefully that's becoming less of an issue. But how, based off of your understanding, how is testing in the Netherlands right now?
testing in the Netherlands still is only when you've got symptoms. But I do like I've heard like murmurs and stuff like that, and I will tentatively confirm that if say a family of four like that are living together, that are always close together, and they all four show symptoms, and only one gets tested, if he comes back positive, basically get four
Right.
get added because they know the other three will have it because one got tested. That's also how the testing went with my mom. I was taking care of her. She got symptoms. I got symptoms. She got tested. I didn't get tested because I wasn't there at the time. It's like you just stay home. Don't go anywhere. We'll let you know what her test result was, and that will also apply to you. So basically, if she had tested positive, that would have been 2 added to the list because I would have been included in that.
Got it.
So I think the numbers are like they're gonna be a bit lower than they actually are, but not by like massive margins. It's not like they're overlooking thousands of cases.
Right. And again, like this is still right. I think actually the site that I talked to, this is the 1.3acres.com site. Feel free for anyone else to post this in chat. I'm okay with that. They do finally have a link that is basically click here to test state testing data and location. And it is nice to see now we're finally getting reports on which states are actually doing tests and what are the outcomes of these tests. And, a week ago, we didn't have anywhere close to 111,000 tests that were happening. And so it is very nice to see this data because before a lot of it was, right, it was like, we know this to be true, but what we're hearing from the government and what we're hearing from medical staff, like there's a little bit of inconsistency in that message. And now we can finally like evaluate that. That's still a very far cry away from our total population. So testing still remains something that is of concern to me, but at least, over here, there's a lot of plans, process and operations that are kind of being facilitated and or in the works that will hopefully continue to raise this number so that we can have better reporting. And hopefully, right, like the most important thing for me is that like, I think that this has a good effect on people's actions, right? Like, to better understand why this is important, why they should care about it, and why they shouldn't be on the beaches of Florida drinking during spring break.
Yep, definitely. Like, knowledge is key in this scenario. And that's also why I really quickly want to touch on something that I was a bit discussed in chat. You discussed a little bit, but I do want to urge people like if you have like I wouldn't say dissenting opinions because that's a wrong word for it, but like if you feel somebody is saying like, okay, this isn't correct, or I disagree with this, don't be like scared away from calling in and like not don't turn the entire conversation around to this. Like, don't make it an entire discussion stream about this particular topic. But if you want to like short for a term like a short form, like discuss, okay, I don't agree that the naming situation, for example, I completely agree with you, but I did see a lot of people that didn't agree with it.
Right.
Having a like calm and like sensible discussion about that might actually help more than talking to no offense to you with at all. You're doing a very good
Thank
job,
you.
but it might have more of an effect than just talking as a streamer like this is what my view is, and having chat reply back, having a discussion and like points going backward and forwards might have more of an impact, might convince more people.
I do agree. And with that being said, I actually want to share a video that's been going around. I'll share it in chat if you have 8 minutes today. check out this great video on COVID-19. I don't want to necessarily, play this video on stream, but I will at least kind of like show to give folks a good idea. It is kind of like an animated video that talks a little bit about COVID-19, but most importantly, I think one of the greatest things that it does is it does a fantastic job of breaking down the effects that this has on people. And I think, like that's oftentimes a lot of the misconceptions, right? It's just a flu. It's not as bad. I think like this video of being very neutral and being very data driven and fact driven talks about what this is, why it affects your body the way it does, why people are going through, the 3 stages that Sev has been talking about, and ultimately why, and what the long-term effects can be for people that contract this, that recover, etc. I just think it is a great video. It is. It's been shared around. I posted on my Facebook. I haven't had a chance to post it here, but like some people might not be comfortable in coming on, but I do think that this is a perfect way for someone who might be on the fence or might not fully understand or might still be saying like, hey, again, isn't this just like the flu? Watch this video. It's 8 minutes. It's got really cool and great animations that make a lot of sense. It tells you how this works. It tells you, why people are reacting the way they are, why it is as deadly as it is. Really fantastic. I can't stress that enough. Have you seen this one by chance?
I have not yet seen it. I do know of the channel Kurt Kazat, and I 99% of the video. There was one that they got kind of wrong, but 99% of the videos perfect, like digestible, very quick, straight to the point with excellent production qualities, which make it a breeze to sit through. It usually doesn't feel like it's an 8-minute video. It usually feels like it's a 2-minute video. Or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend it.
So it was posted in the COVID info channel. That's where I originally saw it. So thank you to the individual who posted that the other night. I want to maybe give a shout out to that person. I don't see exactly that video, but thank you. I appreciate whoever shared that to the thing. So, well, I hope that I do hope that things continue to improve on your end. I'm glad to hear that, you and your mom are in a better spot. So yeah, I hope we'll continue to chat, and unless there's anything else you wanted to say, I'm going to.
Not really.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me update everyone. And,
of course.
Best of luck to you too in these times.
Thank you, sir. Best to you as well. Thank you again. Take care. All right. Oops, I just put myself down in the wrong channel. Oh, Gay Vulture. It was Gay Vulture. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. All right, let me see where we're at in terms of the updated list. Looks like Nightlight is going to be, we got Nightlight, Mr. Kaji, Falaron, and Dark Orax 95 is going to be joining us. But let's bring on Nightlight first. Again, thank you for joining us for these COVID-19 open phones discussion streams. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your thoughts. Do you have questions? You can join my Discord. Come on in. Hop on the program. Don't be afraid. We're here in a safe space, and we want to have every conversation that we can. I will bring you up into the channel when it is time to chat, and our next caller is going to be Nightlight. Nightlight, how's it going? Welcome back.
Well, it's good to be back. It's going fine still, luckily.
Good.
The state in Norway has changed a lot lately. The public transport has now become free. So they blocked off certain locations in the bus. So no one pays anymore. You just go in the back and sit down. That's it.
Interesting. So the public transportation remains open. they've made it free. I assume that they're taking a lot of other steps in order to make sure, like, hey, we're cleaning these things, we're keeping up with that. Are people using it?
Yeah, there's also max capacity of how many people can be on the bus.
Okay. So there's regulations on top of that, but it sounds like at least to help people manage, the economic side of things, they took away the cost for using it, basically.
Yeah, they also put down like tape so people can't go up to the chauffeur and make it sick. Also, all the shops, and mostly all the shops in Norway, no longer pay rent, at least for this month.
No one has to pay rent?
Just shops or big stores don't need to pay rent at the moment.
Okay. So that's really interesting. This is something that, right? So I have a friend who is a hairdresser, and you can imagine that, like, during this time, that's kind of, I need a haircut. I don't know how comfortable I am actually, going and getting a haircut, but I do go to a friend, and she basically rents out, like, she works. So let me take a step back. This is a place that is like 20 studios. And in each studio is some sort of a hairdresser. Maybe they do dye, maybe they do nails, right? And so each individual hairdresser can kind of like have their own shop within this larger shop. And, it's basically been said that, like, we're not going to give any breaks on rent. We're not necessarily, right, going to like stop people, despite the fact that most of them have had to close their stores. And so obviously this is a friend, so it concerns me, and I want them to be taken care of. But there's a lot of questions here in the United States about that, right? My brother shut down his bar. Originally they said, hey, you can't have more than 10 people. It didn't financially make sense for him to keep it open anyway. But now at this point, they're like, you've got to close, right? Like, what sort of flexibility are we going to give these individuals so that their businesses aren't impacted? Like, I don't want to see a post-coronavirus world where all of these places closed because they literally could not sustain themselves during a time of a government-issued, right, quarantine, stay at home, isolation, etc. So it looks like Sagno just said all hairdressers are closed in Norway.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, like, I think I commend the country for doing that. And I would hope that will happen in more places. So.
Also, in most food stores, they're now installing glass at the cashier, so they won't be infected by the customers.
Yeah. Also, most of the delivery places are doing very strict, like, drop off, right? Where it's just like, you can order food from these restaurants, or you can't go to the restaurant. But when they come and deliver the food, they may just, like, ring your doorbell and drop it off at the front, or in some cases, not even drop it off. Like, your app will tell you, hey, your delivery's here, go get it. So, I mean, everyone is certainly doing their part. There's no doubt about it. And it sounds like similar, that a lot of businesses are being creative, offering door delivery in Norway. So it came from Could Not Stop.
Yeah. And also in the news, it's apparently 11 people in Norway under 50 are in critical condition in the hospitals.
Sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
11 people that are under 50 years are in critical condition in hospitals at the moment here in Norway.
Yeah.
That's making people a bit stressed. Why there's so many younger rather than older?
Well, I mean, do you think it's making people stressed because that was a narrative that was introduced in terms of, like, for the last 2 months, they've been saying, oh, this has a higher mortality rate for people who are older. That kind of put people into a mindset of, like, cool, I don't have to worry about this too much because I'm 24. There was recently just an article about a very healthy 30-something here in the United States who, passed away after a week. It was just something that hit them like a truck and nothing could be done. Like I think the reality of it is that we can't even operate that way anymore. We have to assume that regardless of what your age, this could still impact you in a very negative way. And sure, the data does show that most of the deaths are happening with sort of older patients, but that A, doesn't make it something you shouldn't care about, and B, they still have to have concern towards potentially spreading that to older folks. But like now the narrative is kind of shifting to be like, no one's really safe from this.
Yeah, and I'm really concerned that soon in May, in Norway we have something called russetida, which is when a bunch of teenagers go out drinking, banging, just going all crazy for 17 days in a row, basically. And I wonder if those kids will stay in or if they would just say fuck it and do it anyway.
Right, which is kind of one of the problems that we're having. I mean, here in the U.S. too. I got a question from the chat specifically for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Could Not Stop said, can you ask him what he thinks about Norwegians and our walking and hiking in nature? We are being criticized by other countries for this, but Norwegians can't handle not being able to go in nature.
Yeah, I know this because my girlfriend is one of them. She must be outside at least once every 2 days, going in the mountains, going on a trip. Doesn't matter. She must be outside. And this is affecting her a lot because not only is it winter, so it's freezing cold here, but also you have this virus going on. And of course, it affects you. Your anxiety, you're afraid of getting sick. You're afraid that maybe you're already infected and you don't want to make others sick as well. So yeah, she's kind of depressed at the moment because she doesn't want to leave her house except when she needs to go to work.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it are is like, look, if you practice social distancing, I do think that you should try to find ways to disrupt the disruption, right? You should try to find ways to, right? If you can go outside, if you can take a walk. I live in a pretty, not dense area. So taking a walk around, granted, the weather hasn't been very nice for that, but like taking a walk around the neighborhood, I don't feel like is going to put anyone at risk. I think, as long as people are consciously thinking about that social distancing and you're not like, hey, let's have 10 of us meet up and you're high-fiving and hugging, saying, man, what a great hike that was, right? Like we should be encouraged to find those things that will help us during this time of quarantine. Jokingly, but not really jokingly, our neighbors who we're really good friends with sent this like meme picture of like the dads in the neighborhood got together and they're looking at them practicing social distancing. And it's literally 6 people outside in a cul-de-sac here, basically a circle, and they're all standing like 5 feet from or 6 feet from each other. They're drinking a beer. And, I think that's okay, right? Like I've seen sort of the positive uplifting that has happened in Italy with the communities going out on their balconies at night and raving and playing music and singing and clapping for all the people in the medical industry. And I do think as long as we're being smart about it, it's okay, right? We shouldn't shun those actions, especially because, again, we're human. We're not necessarily built to just sit inside a room with 4 walls and no windows and a single door for extended periods of time. So do it, but be safe about it and be conscious that there might be other people who aren't being safe about it. So your practice, your exercise of that is going to be, very important.
Exactly. I totally agree. Like my brothers, that's 14 and 9 years old, they are inside playing Minecraft and doing homework with their friends in Minecraft. It's quite interesting, actually. And my friends normally go out drinking every weekend, and they were, drinking and playing Don't Starve together.
That's funny. I mean, you know what? It's great to see us exercise this incredible digital world that we live in. It's also very fascinating to see, right? Like yesterday, Netflix announced that they were going to be like lowering the quality of stuff in Europe, right? Because of the saturation that is being experienced. And these are all new problems that we like have never dealt with before. But hearing those stories about, hey, we've got kids hanging out and chilling in Minecraft and building worlds and having a place where they can, come together and escape from this, just like we're all looking for escape, makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Also, I'm a bit concerned that in not too long, there's supposed to be a Green Day concert in my area where I live. And it's the only place in Norway that was supposed to have a show. So I hope it gets cancelled.
I mean, I have to imagine at this point, how soon is that supposed to happen?
I think it was in April, I think.
Okay. I mean, I have to imagine that it is going to get canceled. I still, right, like, there was that period of time, it was almost 2 weeks ago, that E3 was canceled, and like that was the big news line, like, oh, all these events are canceling. Now, many of those cancellations have kind of gone into the shadows a little bit because there's so much other things that are going on. So definitely keep a close eye on those. I would advise against not going to those types of things. As fun as they might be, or as big of a release as those events might feel like, it's still a pretty dangerous climate to an environment to kind of put yourself into. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I find it interesting seeing now all over the news that animals are having a great time with us gone. Really.
Yeah. It's pretty funny to see all the different posts, like, my cat hates that everyone's home, or my cat is so happy that everyone is home. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. So, all right. Well, Nightlight, thank you very much for your report. We're keeping Norway in our thoughts, and keep hiking, but be safe about it.
Yeah. One last thing.
Sure.
The emergency law which they put in has now gone through, where the parties that control our country no longer need to like double check with the higher ups if a new law is going to be written, and it's going to be lasting for 6 months. And this is so Norway can react quickly with new laws, so it doesn't get out of hand with the sickness.
That's great news. I mean, we're seeing that happen kind of all over the world, and I think it's a very responsible thing. Where the last thing we need right now is bureaucracy and red tape that will prevent us from, getting the supplies we need, or, having the ICU beds that are needed through all this. So, being able to move fast and efficiently is so important for everything happening right now. So
yeah. Thanks for me. Take care, everyone. Love your people. Love your parents, your friends.
Thanks, man. Yep, I can't agree more. So thank you, Nightlight. Appreciate it, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. Mr. Kaji, our correspondent from Italy, is up next. Then we're going to have a couple of new callers, Faleron and Dark Roxas will be coming on in just a moment, but let's bring on Mr. Kaji. Again, if you'd like to join this discussion, you can hop into my Discord, hop into the phones channel, and we'll bring you up once we get through the queue. But let's go ahead. Let's bring on Mr. Kaji. Mr. Kaji, our correspondent, our official correspondent from Italy. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you, man. How are you and your family?
Yeah, I think like every day is a new battle, a new adventure. Every day it feels like new things are being introduced, but I think more than anything, we're trying to take some time out of each day to kind of like shut everything off and just spend some time together. And Mini-Wheat is frankly, he's doing great. He's been on phone calls and chats with his friends. It's been pretty funny. He was on a phone call with his friends, and I walked into his room the other day, and I was like, Mini-Wheat, we have a project that we're going to assign to you. And his friends were all like, oh, and I was like, Mini-Wheat, I need you to research for us the most effective non-lethal forms of protection that we could have in our home. And he was like, I'm on it. Boom, 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 boom.
Wait, let me stop you for a moment there. Are you preparing for a zombie apocalypse here?
You know what? I
Or
think
or
that
something on
I will
what's going
be
on
the
there.
first to admit that, and I've talked about it on this show, right? I've talked about this sort of this hidden beast in the shadows, and that is that the United States is a place where a lot of people own a lot of guns, and I never want it to come to this, but I am worried that if people decided to take things into their own hands, that could become an issue. However, I remain pretty steadfast on the whole idea that I do not necessarily want guns in my home. I don't particularly have a reason. I feel generally pretty safe. But I think on the same on the same side, or on the other side of that coin, is that I do want to make sure that I can protect my family. So like, we've had this conversation within our household that is like, it would probably not be crazy for us to have some sort of non-lethal way of trying to protect ourselves. That might sound really crazy. But like, I would rather be safe than sorry. And I'm not willing to go out and necessarily purchase a gun during this time. It's not me. My favorite guns are the virtual kind. And, but like, if we had a taser, if we had a bat, I don't know. Right. So to us, it's worth it to do the research and understand what options are available to us. If worse comes to worse, we'll set up a bunch of booby traps, Home Alone style, drop like rocks and hot water on people's, I don't know, but right. Like, it makes us feel a little bit safer. And I think for those reasons that it's something that we are thinking about and willing to do.
Yeah, you're feeling like you have some agency and you have power over some stuff. And also, let me tell you, it doesn't sound stupid at all. It doesn't sound crazy to me. Because, probably, hopefully, it won't be any useful in practice. But even if it turns out you don't use any of that stuff, you're still having an activity that you can engage on with your whole family. And it's like keeping yourself engaged and working together. And, that's useful already.
Right. I have to give a shout out to IPA_lot. He says, "Wheat, I'm a fan of the Roomba Claymore mine." Oh boy, that's pretty funny.
A good one.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. But again, it's like I don't. We're doing our best not to panic, but we want to be one step ahead of everything, and I think that's just one way to be one step ahead. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail what we were.
Oh no, absolutely, man. I asked the question. So,
how about you though? How are things going?
So I'm good, except for the fact that supermarket lines are getting crazy. I had to wait it took me 90 minutes shopping yesterday, and I live pretty much above the supermarket. So.
Okay. So
you said that's my main hiccup.
The lines are right. Like it's just like there's more buying. It's not necessarily panic buying. It's just that people are. What is it?
Yeah, it's just that. It's just that there are less shops open and people are home. Like, have more time at home, and so they can shop pretty much at any hour of the day. There are no rush hours anymore. It's like a constant line pretty much at every time, and at whatever time you go, you have to wait a lot. Because again, they only allowing a few people in at any time.
At a time, so. Right. Yeah, we've had some of those problems, especially in California, where they were literally only letting one or two people in the store at a time, which caused a huge backlog of people. One thing that is happening here in my state is many of these stores are trying to reserve the early hours of the day for elderly, people who need more assistance when shopping, etc., to try to, basically have them come in and shop when the whole store is probably at its cleanest, right? They're doing heavy cleanings throughout the day, which I think is really great. My wife and I have talked about how do they enforce that, and we don't know the answer to that, but I do think that is a great thing. I don't necessarily want to create a world where it's like, okay, if your last name starts with, A through E, you can come to the store for these times, because obviously a lot of people's schedules have been thrown completely out of whack, and that may not necessarily work all the time. But I do agree that doing something like allowing people who need a little bit more time to shop, or people who might be more immunocompromised or elderly, like get an opportunity to get that help and have like a time that they can sort of, have a safe shopping experience.
Yeah, that sounds like a great practice, to be honest. Especially in this moment where it's very important to be concerned for people around us. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a good way to do it. It is a good way to do it. So when we talked, when we talked the other
No, go
day,
ahead.
we, we talked a little bit about how, maybe there was some signs that the quarantine was helping, like after yesterday's reports and everything. There were still 5,300 cases reported, 427 deaths. I saw the unfortunate picture of the military trucks that were, basically full of
Caskets.
full of caskets. Right. How are things generally today?
I have bad news. I'm sorry to say I have bad news. So let me see. So it's still, nothing is definitive. It's not final. We're still waiting. So Sunday and Monday are the decisive days, are the ones where we will start to have a more definite idea of how this is going. But based on yesterday's figures, things are not really looking great. The decrease in the infection rate is not good enough so far. So some estimates based on the data from yesterday indicate that at this rate, the lockdown, it won't be possible to loosen the lockdown before mid-May. So in 2 months from now. Yeah. So if things keep going at this rate, the lockdown will last at least until mid-May. But again, still nothing certain, nothing final. It's just estimates.
Right. This is
have to wait.
They're intelligent
wait
theories based off of the data that they're seeing, right? I mean, it's yeah. So did they announce this, or is this just kind of, is this right? Did the government announce that, or was that coming from your experts, or?
Yeah, exactly. This is some estimates from some experts that are following these statistics on how the percentage decrease rate, like the decrease percentage increase rate every day. So like every day you have, say, 10% cases more than the day before, right? That has to go below 10%. Okay, so there has to be a lower than 10% daily increase for these measures to be considered effective. And right now we're more around 14% daily increase, and that's not good enough.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't help to put people in a good mood, right? Hearing that, this thing that it sucks, it's been like a week now, 10 days. Yeah, this may last for 2 more months. that doesn't sound great at all.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. And and more stuff came up after that, obviously, just to lighten up the mood again. This morning, the Prime Minister announced that it's highly probable that there will be stricter measures enforced, and the announcement is expected within hours. And that could include, most probably, it will include no physical activity, no jogging outside at all. Remember that was a thing that, that was a thing that is still allowed to this day. Some towns, some cities have already stopped that, have already enforced the prohibition for that, and that may be the case on a national level. And I was just thinking about, thinking about California, because like California just today, I think, announced that, pretty much they're on complete lockdown like we are right now, but they're still allowing walks and jogging and deliveries. And I'm really wondering, is that gonna come to the point where we're at right now? Because if that's the case, would it be better to just jog as long as you can, or isolate so you don't get to that
Right.
point.
Just like preemptively do it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the story specifically of California is that the original shelter at home was instructed by San Francisco and the 6 or
Yeah.
7 counties around it. As you mentioned, the governor has come out and said we're going to basically put several million people on lockdown in the same way. That obviously then affects like San Diego, Los Angeles, up and down the coast, everywhere in between. There are also, right, like I don't want to necessarily introduce rumors into things, but there has been more chatter, let's say, about stricter regulations around the entirety of the U.S., increased military presence, these sorts of things. And again, like it's hard to say. It's also hard in this time, right? Like, is there legitimacy behind that? I do think that we move closer here every day to more extreme measures. And while each and every state is making moves based off of what their numbers are, how they think the spread is, how will that affect the country? So, this is something that I think every person of every nation should, at least be thinking about, right? Because this is potentially acts that are meant to protect us, but do kind of go against some of the civil liberties that we exercise, every day. And it's not that anyone is trying to take those away from you, but rather that we need to potentially enforce to ensure, right, the safety of people, not only now in the status quo, but for the good of every human on this planet. So, I think like a week ago, as we were hearing some of the things unfold in Italy and right, you have to carry around your permission slip, etc. Like it's been a little scary, but I think, with each and every little quarantine, lockdown, shelter at home that's taken place, I've become more and more surrendered to the fact that this is likely to happen. So, my question to you is, you've already been in multiple states of lockdown and or quarantine, right? Starting in certain regions in Italy, extending out to the entire country. Do you think that at this point, the people of Italy are expecting that? And do you think that there is any concern in, obviously we have concern in like people's mental health, like people's physical health, etc. But
Absolutely.
right, like how are people generally, in your opinion, responding to that in a positive manner or a like, oh no, fuck you, I'm going to go jogging?
So, sadly, I think it's the second one, man. I think people. So, yeah, this links to another thing that I wanted to mention. First, let me just say, though, let me just comment on what you just said about the fact that, yeah, this is extending and it can be scary at the start, right? To be honest, these things that are being enforced right now were a hard pill to swallow here. Like for me, as I'm guessing for most people in Italy. And I think that that's a reason why it's very valuable for me to share it, for any Italian to share it, for anyone who's going through this to share them. Because, having heard that someone is going through that already helps. It's not like it doesn't hit you in a blind spot.
Right.
Whereas for us, it just was suddenly within 48 hours, we went from, you should just practice social distancing to you cannot go outside. And that's much harder to accept than, seeing other people do it.
Right.
Having heard about it already. And then, oh yeah, it's my turn now. So I'm glad I can do this. And I'm glad you're allowing everybody here to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I right. Like we've had this conversation many, many times where we are dealing with this on different timelines. And like every single little action event that takes place in other countries, it hasn't quite happened yet. It does make it a little bit easier. Thank you, Unity Mind, for the sub. It does make it a little bit easier to accept these things are happening when you've kind of already seen them or read about them or know why it's happening in other countries. And so, like, frankly, I give a huge amount of credit to, even right, the quarantines that took place early in China and the lockdown that took place in Italy. I think it's important. I think it should set a great example for other nations to consider, to start figuring out what is our plan if we get to this point, because more than likely it's definitely possible. But yeah, I think that's one of the very valuable aspects of having these conversations, for sure.
Yeah, I have to agree there. And regarding the fact of the timeline that we're just saying, and then I'm going to answer to your original question after this, I have to say I'm starting to be a bit concerned about the US, man. Because today, for the first time, the US seems to be on a steeper curve than Italy as far as increase goes.
Oh yeah. I
So-
mean, this comes back to my narrative around, like, hey, the administration didn't take this shit seriously when it first happened, right? We had the time. We had the warning. We had the examples of other places around the world. And the one thing that's always just been mind-boggling to me is the idea that, like, we are globally a connected planet, right? Through digital means, through the fact that, like, people travel all around the world all the time in normal circumstances, right? To think that something that is spreading as quickly as things have been spreading could be isolated, especially when we don't have the proper testing, especially when we don't have process and operations in place. This is why our curve is incredibly bad. It has a lot to do with people not respecting what is happening. It has a lot to do with people, frankly, dismissing this as nothing more than just a flu. This is a big part of the problem. And, we may not even be able to truly see this until we're way past this. I've lectured on this many times where I feel like people will truly understand how badly this was fucked up in another 5 to 10 years when people study this and they look at the timelines and they specifically watch what happens, and we can go back and look at the data of the density of spread and how much that factored into and played into the major outbreaks that we're experiencing here in the United States. And so I'm right there with you, man. Like, it's scary. And on one hand, a week and a half ago, when people were like, you're out of your fucking mind, Wheat, when I was saying this is going to happen here, it's just a matter of time, now people are at least starting to take it seriously. There's still an enormous amount of people that aren't, but it's not going to be till much later when we get to see the effects that the sort of ineffective ability to care about this and the people of the United States, that's why we're in the position that we're in.
That's exactly what it is. And this is one of those situations where it just sucks to be able to say, I told you I was right.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
You wish so much to be wrong. But going back to your original question about how people are taking this, not the right way, apparently. It seems like a lot of people are still going out and about and just, going on joggings, going on walks. There have been a high number of checks, and things don't seem to be properly working, to the point where yesterday, yesterday, the Lombardy region started thinking about the possibility of using the army to patrol the streets.
Right.
And today that actually came into effect. In Milan, at least, that's a thing as of today. So the army will be patrolling the streets of Milan and stopping people and doing checks. And it's being considered to extend that to the whole country too. So
what that means is that you now have a military presence in cities that is there to assist with the support of the lockdown.
Exactly. Yeah. They're there to check citizens that are outdoors, and check that they have the right documents on them. And if not, to take, measures to enforce it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Like, for a place like Italy, for a place like the United States, for a place like many, 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 many places in the world, we exist with military presence, but a lot of it happens outside of the eyes and ears of what we are, right? We have bases all around the US, you have bases in Italy, right? Like these are things, right? We have these established military programs, etc. They exist. They have existed, but it's very rare when you see that necessarily bleeding into and effectively becoming a part of the enforcement in a city. And it's a scary thing, right? It's like, it is something that is typically happening during wartime or during times of unrest. And again, like, the whole conversation of this being an invisible enemy is very true. And I think, like, it's going to be important for us to realize, like, hey, we may not like this status quo, but I do think that the purpose is not for governments to exercise, power over the people. I really do believe that it is purpose to protect people, which is why they are there in the first place. So I don't want to suggest, like, open your mouth, swallow the pill, deal with it. But I hope that people will think about why that is being done. It is not intended as being a way to take away rights, but it is truly intended to serve its actual purpose, and that is the protection of people. And in this case, the protection of people from other people, right?
Or from themselves.
Right. So it's a really hard thing to navigate, because again, like, this is not something that any of us are used to in our lifetimes. And maybe some people are, right? There are states that are in, constant military presence, and, right. This might be exactly the opposite of what I'm saying, where it is a possibility where a government wants to exercise more control over its citizens. I hope that that's not the case, especially as we think about places like Italy, like the United States. So that's a kind of sit and wait type situation, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't think it is. Like, at least it's not starting because of that, with that intent, because things here are really bad, are so bad that you would expect something like that. Like, and especially in Lombardy, in the Lombardy region,
Mm-hmm.
the lockdown probably may not have been enough at all, like, because the numbers are rising. There has not been a decrease. It's really bad. Numbers are rising, and there is a lack of medical facilities, medical supplies, medical personnel too. They are, as of yesterday, they are calling back doctors that are in retirement, because there are, and doctors and nurses, because there are not enough people helping, and a lot of medical personnel, a big part is getting sick, so that's a big problem too. It's a whole mess. Like, several hospitals are opening across northern Italy just to try to address this emergency situation.
Right.
Really bad. And in the meantime, some doctors are faking sick.
Some doctors are getting sick, is what you said?
Are faking sick.
Because of their concerns into what they're dealing with?
Yeah, they don't want to have to deal with this shit. So
I mean, that's scary. And there's a part of me that is like, I think, like, that one part of me immediately wants to react and be like, well, that's bullshit. Like, have some courage. But at the same time, like, that should just show you how concerned we should be about all of this. That,
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
we've heard that from doctors, nurses, medical staffs over time. And I've also heard that we've done the same thing, is that doctors and nurses are coming out of retirement, that it's like an all hands on deck. And this is one of the major concerns amongst the medical community, is that, like, if we're not being protected, this is why running out of supplies is so important to this story, because if the medical community cannot protect themselves, you know, what are we going to, like, spin up become a doctor in 30 quick steps? Like, it doesn't work like that. And so I do have a big concern over that. And I do think that we need to do everything in our power to protect our medical community in that regard.
I absolutely agree. And one thing that I would say has been lacking in the response to this, even though from other countries, based on what we're seeing here, is repurposing production to medical supplies. Because, like, I understand if you don't want to lock down the country, but seeing that the lack of supplies is something that we're struggling with, you can start doing that.
Right.
And I personally haven't seen that. And now it's starting to become a problem in other European countries too. So, yeah, that's a concerning thing. But what can you do now?
Yeah.
It's too late, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I'll be curious to hear how that goes, because I think that is something that is going to be happening here soon. If not already, you know, I'm sure that preparations are being made. And you know, that's going to be like a tough pill, I think, for a lot of people to swallow. But the cats just all came into my room. What, are you guys okay? Oh, the doorbell rang, so they're freaking out. Wow, they're hiding. Okay. This is what has happened to. Hey. I'm not sure what's happening upstairs. I might need to go upstairs for a second.
Yeah, no problem, man.
But well, I hear my wife talking to someone. I was like,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
All right, everything's okay. Everything's okay.
Okay, I didn't commandeer the stream.
Yeah, it's fine. It was we had a delivery of some essentials come in, and it was the person
Okay, all
dropping it
good
off,
then.
So.
Okay.
So yeah, we were talking about the military presence. So you said that they might announce this in the next couple hours. Is that accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, it's no idea to know if it's accurate, but it's expected within the next few hours. So I guess we're gonna have to see.
Okay.
I think there's a good chance that they're gonna announce something by the end of the day.
Okay. Well, I think that's sort of a prelude to kind of everyone else being prepared for those types of things to happen. You know, especially if we see continued or ballooning spread in other countries. I mean, as you mentioned, you're concerned for the U.S. and I am too. And I think that we still have not even seen the worst of this. You know, we still have a lot of people potentially promoting, you know, community spread. And if we need to take those measures, then, you know, I, for one, will be there to support, as long as they're done in a right manner that is for the protection of the people, and not to, you know, take away and or suppress kind of the rights of folks. So
that sounds like a good attitude, if you ask me. And again, like this is a moment where we should be willing to give up some of what is our usual everyday life,
right,
for the better of everybody else and everybody in general, including us in the long term. So yeah, we should be thinking about that, I think.
Well, Mr. Kaji, thank you once or as always for coming on.
Thank you for having me,
It
sir.
really is. Again, I know I'm going to just sound like a broken record all the time, but your insight and your contributions have been invaluable to me and to many other individuals. We appreciate your diligence. It's obvious that you care not only about Italy, but also about every other country that is going through this. So again, thank you and much love.
I'm doing my part.
You're doing your part. Appreciate it. All right, man. Well, we'll talk soon. Be safe.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Before I bring on our next two callers, there's two things I want to address. One of them is the discussion that was going on in chat about the, did Trump call this a hoax? There was some discussion, and I did come in and I just said, hey, I don't know what I say. I understand why this is being discussed, but please be respectful is what I threw out there. And IPA Lot threw out something that's pretty powerful. He said, no, djWHEAT, that's bullshit. That's like the fucking cop that didn't intervene in the school shooting in Parkland. And that's fair. What I want to say about that topic is that, look, what I know Trump did and what I can tell you and I can quote you on is that and what I think is more powerful than, the hoax argument, right? Like that word has been thrown around a lot, right? And the Russia and the impeachment hoax, right? All those things. And I think it's absolutely been abused and misused by Trump. But I don't really think about what I think about is, right, what are those things that we can quote him on? I think the most powerful quote is, everything is under control. We've got 15 cases now, and by next week, it's going to be down to close to zero. That's all I need. I just need that one quote. I can find you the video of it if you want to see it. But to me, that was the early indication of someone who didn't want something to disrupt their reelection, their standing as in presidency, someone who believed their own lies that the United States is the best fucking country in the world and somehow we're going to be immune to all of this. That's the part, and those are the things that I would point to when I would say how things were mishandled early on. I think the idea and some of the clips and videos that were going around about the hoax, whatever, right? Like people can edit and people can do things. And I do believe that what he did actually say in that moment was that the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus, which, is very easy to then just say Trump called it a hoax. At the end of the day, we can all agree that the most important thing is that through his words and through his actions, he downplayed this for at least a week, almost 2 weeks. So I'm not going to necessarily say any more on that. What I am going to say is that I am incredibly disappointed as a citizen of the United States that someone would be so irresponsible in how that was handled. I oftentimes play the role of diplomat, but let me just give you, right, my alternate take. I'm the president. There's 15 cases. I'm going to come out and I'm going to say, people of the United States, what's going on around the world is scary. It is really scary. We're seeing huge developments in China. We're seeing widespread developments in Italy that have led to lockdown. And right now, we've got 15 cases. And that might seem like a small number. And it's my hope that we can get that number down. But we also need to make preparations and be ready if that number were to come up. So I want to assure you, the people of the United States, that we're taking this seriously, that we're looking at things that are happening around the world, and we will act accordingly. I don't want anyone to be panicked by this. I think that there is definitely the right for concern, but, we're going to get through this together. And if those words came out of that man's mouth, how much of a better place would we be in? How much more comfort would have been, right? Right now, the United States and the whole world needs a blanket. Right? We don't need to open the door and let the cold world in or let the cold wind in. We need to be given a blanket where we can feel warm and safe. And so I think that those words and those actions were incredibly irresponsible. I would have handled that much differently. I think that we've had other presidents in the past who have handled it much differently. And that to me is the biggest offense of Donald Trump. With that being said, we're going to move on to our next callers. I want to remind folks, if you'd like to join us, we've got a little bit of time remaining. You're right. That's fair. No president has handled anything like this. But you know what I can say? Presidents have handled crises that have affected the entire nation, and they've handled it well. And those are the examples that I wish that the current administration would follow. Oh, yeah, sorry. Before we go to our callers, the next thing is the GameStop. Frankly, I think that these folks need to be... I think that these folks do need to get a slap on the wrist. So this is a report on GameSpot about GameStop, which reads, GameStop says it's quote-unquote essential retail, won't close stores amid state government recommendations. GameStop considers itself essential retail and would like managers to state as much if authorities come to shut them down. People have been asking what my thoughts are about this. There was a memo that was leaked, and, you know, there have been additional things that have come out about this. But again, this comes down to like making a choice that is economically focused rather than safety focused. I don't agree that GameStop is essential retail. As a gamer, you know, that might sound weird, but Wheat, how are you going to get your Animal Crossing? Well, I'm not playing Animal Crossing, so enjoy that. How are you going to get your Doom Eternal? I'm going to download it. I'm going to get it digitally because that's the safe and responsible thing to do. I'm not very happy about this. I don't think that this is a very responsible thing to do in this time. As I mentioned, I do think that it is irresponsible, but they did follow up, and this is important. They followed up with the following. This is the actions that we have decided to take. We will institute social distancing practices in our stores, only 10 customers in a store. Following CDC guidelines to adopt in-store line management, this creates a 6-foot perimeter between customers. They will be reducing their store hours from 12 to 8. They are going to be rolling out delivery and door service, which to me, like, they should have just done that from the beginning. Temporarily suspending video game and consumer electronics trade practices until Sunday, March 29th. Postponing all gaming events and midnight launch activities till further notice. Disabling temporarily all interactive gaming stations at the stores. Encouraging customers to leverage our online e-commerce capabilities and directly deliver. Like, this would have been a better headline for them if they would have just come right out and said this instead of letting a memo leak that said, hey, we're going to stay open because we feel that we are effective or we are essential retail. I do not want people to be calling GameStops and telling them that they're pieces of shit. They've got a corporate phone number that you can go and give your feedback on. I am happy that they have at least said, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I think out of all these things, the most important thing is, like, why not take up some of the same practices as the food delivery, right? Rolling out delivery and door services to let people pick up their purchases or take them to their homes. Right? Like, drastic times take for drastic measures. And like, I think that that is a creative way to solve the problem rather than potentially causing an uproar and a lot of gamers to be upset that GameStop isn't joining the Gamers versus COVID-19 pledge and they are, you know, kind of acting in their own regard. So, yeah, I mean, IPA lot, I agree with you. The delivery and door services for me are just Steam and downloading things digitally. And I've been on that boat for a very long time. I understand that's not the case for everyone. But, you know, at this time, I don't agree with their initial memo. And I'm glad they've taken the right, you know, precautions. But I wish that they would have just started with those precautions. So, let's take a couple more callers. Coming up next, we got Coming up next, we've got Faleron. Thank you, Faleron. He's been waiting for quite a long time. We really appreciate everyone who has been joining us in the queue for callers. They have been patient. So let's bring Faleron on and hear what they've got to say. Faleron, hello, welcome, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Where are you from?
Hey, good morning, Marcus. I'm from Texas.
Texas.
Southeast Texas. matter of fact.
Is there any chance I could get you to maybe turn yourself up just a little bit on your end? You're a little quiet.
How is that?
That
Sorry.
is wonderful. Thank you very much. No, I appreciate
I'm
that.
gonna have to mess with all this here.
I appreciate that. Now, when I clicked on your profile, I saw you've been playing Path of Exile for 2 hours. But so before we chat, I just got to ask what build you're running.
I'm running a Holy Flame totem.
Okay.
And I was really hoping you didn't get to me when I was fighting Katava. So it's a good thing for that.
That's good. That's good. Is this Katava Act 5 or 10?
10.
Okay.
Yeah, just finishing up getting to maps.
Nice. Awesome. So,
But
yeah.
I'm from Southeast Texas, about an hour east of Houston, real close to Louisiana. And a lot of what you've been saying here recently too, is really what I want to talk about. We have a lot of businesses down here who aren't taking this really too seriously, my business included. And I apologize if you hear background noise through me too, because I have a crew of 10 right now pouring concrete on the street outside behind me, if that tells you how serious people are taking this right now.
Wow.
But I actually work in a refinery as a contractor, and that's a lot of the work down here around Houston and
Sure.
where I'm from. There are about 6 different refineries probably out here. The refinery that exploded months back was about 10 minutes from my house. So
Wow.
that might give you a little direction of where I'm from.
Yeah.
But-
Okay. Yeah.
But my big concern is this refinery I work for, or I'm contracted to work for, they are doing what's called a turnaround. And if nobody's familiar with that, it's where they do work on units. They bring a lot of people in and try to get a lot of work done in a small amount of time. And they have about 5 units they're doing that with right now. So things have changed drastically every day this week. Monday to Tuesday, they implement a bunch of changes. Tuesday to Wednesday, a lot more. Wednesday to Thursday, even more so. But what I learned yesterday was that lawyers for these energy companies, other companies, are going to judges to try and enact things and put into law to allow them to stay open and surpass these limits of 10 people as far as community or working go. And that's really concerning, because what I'm seeing here is the way that's the refinery and many others down here do it. They have people park off site and they bus them in. And they're busing them in through contractors. And the company I actually work for is a safety company, and we're starting to do temperature monitoring at the gates.
Okay.
Which I feel is good, but I feel it's way too late to do that once you're putting 20 to 30 people on a bus,
Right.
and then getting them there. Not to mention that they're bringing people from, Houston, which has had several confirmed cases. I think there were a couple people I saw from Illinois. So there's a lot of people traveling to come down and do this stuff. And yeah, I just feel it's way too late for some of these things that we're seeing going on and restrictions being put in place. I'll say, but not enforced.
Right.
Because I haven't seen that anywhere, with the exception, I think, California and New York, I believe, are the biggest two. But it's a little late. And we literally just got testing here in this county this week. And the very next day, we already had 1 confirmed case. And that's with limited testing as well. So I have a bad feeling, and y'all were mentioning it earlier, the curve of U.S. versus Italy, how we're a lot steeper off than that right now. And, myself, I feel like I'm the only one worried down here, because everybody's out like you were saying earlier, treating it just like a common flu or common cold, and not realizing that it has potential damages further down the line after you've beat the sickness.
Right. Now, can I ask you as a small business owner, like obviously, right, like that means you're carrying sort of the concern of health. You're carrying the concern of, right, like the economic impact that this can have on everyone, and most importantly, like small businesses. You brought up kind of like what the lawyers are trying to do and enacting certain things to kind of avoid some of the regulations, restrictions, et cetera. Um, we've had a few small business owners call in, and one of them was, an online retailer, and there's probably a little bit less disruption as far as that's concerned, because I think people are kind of turning to online as a way to maybe get some things done. Um, like as kind of, it sounds, I don't want to be insensitive. I want to make sure that right, because I do think this is a sensitive topic. I think, right, like you are obviously doing everything to protect your employees, to protect your company, et cetera. What does an extreme lockdown look like for you and a small business in this regard?
And the difficult part is you want to do things so you're not going to destroy your business, but you also want to do things so your business doesn't destroy itself.
Right.
As in, say you're the one that brings in the virus to a major refinery, and now with that, they have to quarantine that entire refinery, which is, something that the refineries are doing out here. If, say, somebody within it gets tested and is tested positive, they were going to lock it down for 2 weeks and not let anybody leave. So you're having to balance that. We have people working from home if we can get them to. Today I decided to work and do some reports from home rather than be on site myself. So it's a hard balance, but I think it's not one that any owner should have to make. I think that's more something that if we had our elected officials, because it's different county, state,
Right.
United States government, everybody is locking things down at a different rate. So I think if the elected officials were to take the initiative and to put these things in place, not just for social gatherings as they're putting it, but for the workforce as well, I think that would take a lot of relief off business owners as having to make that tough decision of whether they have to, risk their business or not.
I mean, I would imagine that like this is one of the most stressful things that you're kind of dealing with right now, on top of everything else, which is equally as important. But like I can, my experience that I'm experiencing this right now is with my brother who owns a bar. And, bar's been open for several years, very successful. But that, doesn't mean that he's not concerned. Right. And you can, like, small business can mean a lot of different things. There could be really easy ways for small businesses to make some adjustments in sort of their everyday, what they're doing, but not every small business has that liberty either. So what I feel like I hear you saying is that it might actually be better, not only from a safety perspective, but also from an operational perspective, if we did have, right, the federal government say, we need to institute this, we need to make sure that everyone is kind of like, following the same set of rules and guidelines.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And one of the neat things that they've done here, and I believe this was in Houston, I heard it yesterday, is they're allowing bars to actually deliver
Right.
alcohol.
Yes, I saw that too. Yeah.
Is really neat because they're looking out for that particular small business, whether it be a bar or restaurant or any chain like that. They're looking out for the workers. They're trying to give them a means to get their product, which is food and beverages, out to customers as they need. So I think that's a good step. And I think that's one more people or more officials should take. And maybe, our elected officials in DC should kind of look towards that and maybe follow suit.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, there is definitely you know, I have a concern for this. I've been thinking about this from the educational perspective. I've been thinking about this from the health perspective. I've been thinking about this from the economic perspective. And, I do have a really deep concern for the effect that this can have on small businesses, the effect that this has even on essential services and right. The more importantly, like the long-term effects. So I'm right there with you, right? Like it's really important, I think, to get this exact type of perspective in these conversations. Because right, like this is not necessarily something that we are all fully informed about, that we even all understand. And it's just helpful to get perspective from someone who's kind of dealing with it on the front lines like you are. So I do appreciate you, sharing this with us. I want to ask one other question. You mentioned, that like every day it seems like you're kind of dealing with more regulation or another issue that is sort of coming up. How are you dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, right? You've got to like take care of, friends and family. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of the business. But I would imagine and it means you've got to like stay informed, stay on top of what people are saying, et cetera.
It's a lot of research. It's a lot of phone calls, a lot of conference calls. It's we had different trainings going out yesterday for some of the different things that we're doing, not just for our company, but for bringing people in. Again, we're going to be the ones holding the temperature guns and wearing the Tyvek suits and respirators and all that PPE, screening people who come in to the plant. So there's a lot that's going on top of all the stuff that we normally do. So lots of long hours, lots of research, lots of calls. Try not to stress about it too much, but also trying to keep up with what's going on with news and constantly checking CNN, constantly checking local news for whatever the governor might do here in Texas. So just trying to stay informed and trying to spread the correct information as best we can while trying to also keep business running as normal as possible.
Well, we just got that. I mean, that's great to hear the efforts that you're putting into it, and I wish you the best in staying on top of it. It sounds like we just got word that they're gonna potentially do some waiving of interest and no penalties on student loans, which I think like all these steps are the right steps. I hope that we continue to make some of these advancements that will allow us to, protect those people, whether it be students or small businesses, et cetera, who undoubtedly are going to experience, the ripples from this, which is like one of the scary things I'm worried about. So, well, great. Fowron, I really appreciate you calling in and giving us your perspective. Like I mentioned, I think it's really important that we continue to get these perspectives and hear from folks and the different ways that they're being affected. So thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate it, Marcus. Thanks for doing this.
No problem, man. Take care. Be safe. And good luck. Bye-bye. Federal tax deadline delayed until July 15th. We just got news about that. That's good news. I heard from the individual who helps us with their taxes, and they expressed some of the difficulty in, having to work from home, having children, right? I have a husband-wife team that runs their own company that specifically for taxes, but we're getting a lot of updates. So we're going to take our final caller, and then we're probably going to wrap some things up here. 1 second. Let me bring this back up. I was just bringing up my CNN feed, which I really wish in this time, like I could just watch this with you guys and we could watch it together and we could discuss it. That's like one of those things that I kind of wish in this time they would just be like, hey, we need people to have more information. You are free to co-stream this with folks. It's unclear, and unfortunately, I'm just reading via the subtitles, so we'll have more solid information as we take on, the next couple of episodes. We're gonna bring on what will probably be our last caller. It's Dark Roxas 95 is going to be joining us. First off, thank you for being so patient, Dark Roxas. We appreciate your patience in all of this. But welcome, and where are you from?
Hi, I'm also from Texas.
Okay. How are you doing? How are you holding up?
Good.
So, what do you want to talk? We've talked about a number of things today, but happy to hear what you have to say about all this stuff going on.
Well, I'm wanted to just talk about my experiences as far as because I work 2 jobs. I work at a nursing home and I work at a grocery store at 3 days a week. So I'm seeing 2 different sides of the spectrum.
Wow. Well, first off, let me say thank you, because I know that, right, those are two things that one that has, giant risk around it, obviously, as we've seen in King County and Washington, and the other just because we need, right now the grocery stores are essentials, like I was mentioning earlier. Like, I feel like you are a first responder, so I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, please do tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so at the grocery store I work at, we've cut our hours down to 12 hours a day, 8 to 8 every day. Just the way it's been set up because we're running out of supplies as quickly as we can get them in.
Right. And is that also allowing you guys to clean?
Yeah, it's allowing us to clean. We've closed off certain sections, like our bakery department and our deli department have completely, more or less, shut down most of the non-essential faculties that we're doing. We're trying to sell whatever deli products we have, and then we're going to put those employees to other stations.
And because that's absolutely imperative. I think people want to be feeling safe, right, in these places that they're going to. And as far as I'm concerned, this was not something that the government said, grocery stores, you need to clean your stores and you need to, right? This is something that sort of your store has kind of made those obligations to themselves and their customers to do that. And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and also because I specifically in the grocery store, I work as a personal shopper. I pretty much shop for customers who can't either make it have time in their day to come into the store themselves. So literally trying to go through everything, see what we can get customers who are online is a little hectic right now.
Yeah, I would imagine there's a huge influx of that. Yeah.
We're having to short a lot of our frozen vegetables, our toilet paper, some of our canned goods. It's concern to me. It's just because I want to support the customer, give them what they want and what they need. I just feel a little bad because we are having to either not be able to give them what they need or what they want, and just feel a little bad about that.
Right. Is there anything, right? We've heard about there's toilet paper shortages. Oh, there's people buying water. Are there any other items that are surprising that are hard to obtain or get that you seem to be running out of a lot of? I asked this question because meat seems difficult to get right now, right? I think now that they've set new hours and they give themselves more time to restock. But is there anything that you've noticed that is a little bit more difficult to keep in stock that a lot of people are going that we might not have heard about or know about?
Well, at the start of it, frozen pizzas were pretty much out of stock. Now it's kind of like settled down where we've limited the amount of frozen pizzas anyone can buy.
Interesting.
Frozen vegetables have been limited and are going out every day. That's
Okay.
and I'm not thinking of anything that you wouldn't think of.
I mean,
offhand.
frozen pizzas is one of those things like that makes a lot of sense to me, and I guess so that kind of answered my question. Seahole from chat asked, "What are grocery stores around your area doing in Texas to help keep people away from each other at checkout and different things like that?"
Well, I work at HEB, which is one of the main grocery stores in Texas. So we're trying to do a 3-foot limit as far as like be a grocery cart away from everyone, more or less. We're trying to now in the mornings when we open, we have a security guy watching in the morning to make sure people are at least 3 to 6 feet away from each other.
And I imagine that you're seeing customers respect this as well. It's not like people are constantly have to, run around blowing a whistle saying, "I need you to be 6 feet away from each other." Or do you see that happening?
I haven't personally seen anything like that, but I know a few days ago we had at least 2 or 3 fights happening in the store.
Over goods?
Yes.
Wow.
Over goods.
Wow. That's one of those things that kind of scares me a little bit. Like, I understand the human condition. I understand our need to sometimes panic and defend, but it just makes me sad to hear those.
Yeah, and now there's talk from our corporate that we're probably going to shut down all the stores and just go completely online delivery systems.
What do you think about that?
Well, being a part of that department, I feel like it's going to add a lot more stress, but I understand why it would possibly be necessary because we know we can at least get the supplies out. We know how many we can limit it to and all that.
Right. I mean, I would imagine too that like to help out that other employees could potentially be individuals helping make deliveries or going through and actually shopping for some of these items, right? It's like, I assume that it wouldn't mean like, sorry, baggers and cashiers, like you don't have any work to do, but more or less like, hey, we need to fulfill all these orders. We need to be making these deliveries. So I would imagine that you will get that help. Is that true?
Yeah, that's exactly what's being talked about.
Good. What do you think about, right? Like, we've heard from a lot of different states in the United States in terms of like how people are managing and handling this. And one thing that we've talked about is like generally a group of individuals who are still kind of on the fence of like, oh, I don't think this is that big of a deal. Are you seeing any of that through people's actions, or what do you think the general sentiment is? Folks in your area, obviously.
I'm thinking in my area, I'm seeing a lot more people wearing gloves, face masks. I'm seeing a lot more taking precautions as they shop. And it's interesting to see just because I'm seeing before all this came about, obviously people were just doing their own thing, shopping as they needed.
Yeah. But you're seeing more and more people act as if they are taking it seriously, which is good. That's what we need. Yeah. So what about your other job? You mentioned, the grocery store, and that's awesome. You mentioned, working in a nursing home. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I work in the dietary department of a nursing home,
Okay.
and I'm seeing what's happening there. We're getting scanned every day to pretty much to see if we have fever and signing off on things. And now they've gotten the residents to a point where it's like you're staying in your rooms, you'll be eating in your rooms, you're limiting where you can sit. You can't sit next to whoever you want. You have to sit one person to a table.
What about visitors? Because we saw some of the reports, and Washington where like in some cases they'd shut off visitors and like family members were outside the windows of their loved ones, like, you know, at least having conversations or, you know, being there with them as much as they can. Is there a visitor lockdown?
Yeah, there's a visitor lockdown. It's mainly pretty much non-essential unless it's critical condition.
Okay. Okay. That's so sad to me.
Yeah.
That, I mean, like I could only imagine, and I feel so bad for those individuals that, you know, make regular visits and can't or have limited communication. I know that that can be tough also in a nursing home where, you know, you might be dealing with patients who are suffering from something that might, you know, make it more difficult for them to understand what is even going on, et cetera. Is there, you know, granted, we heard a lot of the terrible stuff that happened in King County with some of the nursing homes up there. Was that something that caused the nursing home that you worked with to like jump into action earlier, just as a result of what was happening in Washington?
Yeah, they started taking precautions around the time Washington got hit, and now it's only now that they decided, hey, residents are staying in the rooms, eating in the rooms, and all that.
Well, I mean, you are on the forefront, and as I mentioned before, like I can't, I don't think I can give you enough thanks just for what you're doing and staying strong through all this. Like I'm sure that's got to be difficult to see and experience, and you know, I hope you're able to kind of manage some of your stress around all this. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Dark Rocks is, you know, first, again, thank you so much for calling in. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you for being on the front lines. And please, please, please stay safe out there.
You too.
All right.
Sweet.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. All right. It's been a heavy day. There is a time where we can say, I don't think we need to do these streams anymore. And that will be a glorious and amazing day. And let me tell you, like, I miss playing games, but to me, all those games that I could be playing right now, except for Doom Eternal, that's going to be a great way to decompress. But all these games I could be playing, they'll still be there. I also want all the humans that are alive right now to still be there. So thank you. I know that today we had some spicy conversations and, you know, there's a couple of things and you could tell from today, like, I'm not band happy. I want people to be able to have their opinions. I feel like people can respectfully share their opinions. I might get a little inflamed and get a little loud and wave my arms a little bit. That's what I do. I'm not hiding who I am, what I believe. But I just want to say thank you. Even though we did have some things that might have been a little bit spicy, we still had good discussions. We still had some great participation, and I hope that this continues on. Thank you, Dito. I appreciate that. I really do. Vexed, you know, it's so easy to hit ban, but I don't think that is always the right solution. So again, like, I know some people are like, just ban so-and-so. Like, that's not how I want to exercise this. I want to make sure that people know they've got a voice, but I want them to also take everything that's being said, all the information, all into consideration. So again, thank you. I will see you Monday. Yes, Gamer Fat Cat, folding at home is definitely something that we have been talking about and would be a good way for people if they want to take an extra step and do a little bit more. I will see you Monday. I hope you have a super safe weekend. We'll see where we're at in another 3 days. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're taking care of your friends and your family. Make sure you're checking in with the people that you love. Make sure that people are taking this seriously, that they're taking the right precautions. We can all do our part. It may not seem so big, but every little thing helps. Finally, I also want to thank Matateron. I hope I said that right. Matateron for that last sub. Thank you so much. It really means a lot that you're coming out and you're sharing your stories, and I will see you Monday. I hope that you have a remarkable and safe and healthy weekend, and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm out. Peace.